slingshot effect from that.
In boxing, Derek Chisora secured a fourth-round stoppage win over David Price in their all-British heavyweight fight in London. And just a reminder, the clocks have gone back 1 hour after British summertime ended earlier this morning. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
This is Love Sport.
You're trying to leave the house, but not before you dress the kids, pack their lunch and track down that missing shoe. So forgetting to turn the heating off is easily done. But it's nice to know with Hive Active Heating, a Which Best Buy, you can turn your heating off from wherever you are. And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill. Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport.
Good morning, Love Sport Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer, here with you until midday. Let's touch on some of the top stories this morning. England's Rugby Union players dominated the back pages after making the World Cup final after their convincing win over New Zealand. The Telegraph calls it one of the greatest performances of all time, while England's World Cup winning coach, Clive Woodward, writes in the Mail he can't imagine the national side have ever played better on the biggest stage. In football, the Mirror reports that Manchester United Chief Executive Peter Kenyon is looking to broker a deal for a US investment group to buy Newcastle, while The Sun says it looks as if Arsenal board have backed Unai Emery's decision to have Mesut Ozil on the very fringes of his squad. They call the World Cup winner a £350,000 a week misfit. Today in rugby, Wales hope to set a Rugby Union World Cup final with England later. They face South Africa in the last four in Yokohama. Wales last reached the semi-finals 8 years ago with George North, one of the survivors from that squad.
I think in 2011 we went in as a bit of an unknown and got there obviously by sheer determination and belief as well, and this time feels like we've earned our place.
Head coach Warren Gatland has warned it could be a bruising encounter.
They kicked 30 times against Japan, so it won't be the prettiest game in the world. It'll be a tight test match with probably teams playing a bit of territory depending on what the weather's like, and I said a lot of ball will go in the air and we've just got to be able to handle that, and they've got to be able to handle our game as well.
In boxing, Derek Chisora secured a stoppage win over David Price in their all-British heavyweight boxing match in London. Scotland's Josh Taylor earned a points victory over Regis Prograis to win the WBA and IBF Super Lightweight World titles. In football, Everton manager Marco Silva couldn't hide his fury at the penalty given by the video assistant referee defeat at Brighton. We're going to be talking a bit of football next. Everton went on to lose 3-2 and Silva made it clear his contempt for the decision. I'm joined by Mr. Paul Mortimer. How are we?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, how are we doing?
I'm not too bad. Yourself?
Very well. I mean, look, we're going to be talking obviously a lot of rugby today for obvious reasons. In fact, we've got a great guest. We've got several great guests this hour. We're going to be speaking to Andrew Baldock, Press Association rugby correspondent, shortly. We'll also be talking to Michael Lemonato, F1 writer, Gab Sutton about the EFL. So I want to start with a bit of Premier League, if that's okay with you, given that we will be going heavy on the rugby, of course. But it was, of course, a fascinating day in the football yesterday. A few interesting results. Got to start with Man City. Good win for Man City. They certainly look like they're back on track. Not they're ever necessarily off track.
I mean, you read about Guardiola not very complimentary about their first half performance. You know, I think he said something along the lines of, we get relegated if you play like that, which is a weird thing. Yeah. But, they got it done in the end. And sometimes you don't play brilliantly, but you just get the job done. But I thought they were good on the day.
Well, there was... I don't want to talk too much of VAR today because it seems to dominate a lot of our conversations. Of course, there were a few issues with the second goal. A very strange goal. So the ball whipped in, a touch off Silva, which we didn't know at first, and then you see the super slow-mo, which would mean that then Sterling is therefore offside. So he's not offside the initial phase of play. The second there's that touch, he is offside.
I thought it was offside.
So then this is the bit that then it's the, let's say, catch-22, because obviously they've ended up giving the goal to Silva hours after the game, which then means, well, actually it shouldn't have been given. So I mean, it's
offside. As far as I'm concerned, if David Silva gets a touch and it appears he did, then Sterling's offside. It's not even a discussion. So it was a bit confusing, I've got to say, and disappointing.
Yeah. Well, look, we can hear it from Guardiola now.
I wish Laporte back and everybody came back, of course. It's what it is. So I prefer to be all together, but we have other solutions. And when the spirit is correct, when you want to help, and always you go through.
Mr. Guardiola there. I mean, they, again, so they've never really necessarily been off track, but it is looking more and more that they're so dominant, really. Villa, in fairness, first half I thought looked pretty good.
Yeah.
The goal early in the second half did kill them. It's a bit of an old school goal, really, wasn't it? It was a big punt upfield, lovely flick on, in fairness, but it was...
But it's woeful defending. Tyrone Mings should win the first header. Simple as that. He should beat Jesus in the air. The second defender should be covering.
Do you know, I can't... Right,
simple.
Obviously, it's been a fantastic month or so for Tyrone Mings, obviously with England, etc. Well, a bit of a turbulent month as well with some of the things he faced with England. But I think he's one that I still can't quite figure out. I feel like he could be phenomenal, given, I suppose, the natural attributes that he's got. But at the same time, he does have a mistake in him. I mean, there was another moment as well. He made an incredible block off the line.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, fantastic agility to manage to get the ball off the line. But there was like 2 or 3 moments where he does seem to switch off. Is that part of his game?
Well, I look at him and I think... It sounds really weird. I just think with him, 1 minute, $1 million, next minute, 2 bob.
Yeah.
He does. He just makes those mistakes. Now, at the very highest levels, when they're tight games, you cannot have someone on the pitch who seems to just mentally drop out for a couple of seconds, which could cost you. And he should be heading that. It's simple as that. That goal should never have happened the way it did, as far as I'm concerned. Great finish, great anticipation from Sterling, but should have been dealt with.
And on that note, obviously another goal for Raheem Sterling. I mean, look, we're running out of superlatives, right?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely fantastic. Let's be totally honest. I mean, his game has changed. If you consider from when he first came to Man City to now, you know, his finishing is better. His all-round game understanding and match management has totally improved, and it's going to need to, because if you look at Man City at the moment, I mean, they've got some serious injury problems.
Yeah, and obviously it didn't help with Fernandinho getting
sent off. Rodri's injured. Laporte is huge. Is injured. John Stones is back, but he looked a little bit shaky in spells yesterday. I think Otamendi might be back, but. You know, the injuries are piling up for them.
They are. Let's talk a bit of Chelsea as well. Of course, they won 4-2 away at Burnley. Lampard insists his players must stay focused.
I don't want to get carried away and put massive high expectations on us now, because I know how tough this league is in the big grind, and there's a long way to go, so we shouldn't do. But there's nothing wrong with feeling confident and playing well at the moment, but knowing we can improve.
Of course, going 4-0 up in this game. A penalty given that was then overturned, rightly so, with Hudson-Odoi.
Yeah.
I mean, it was simulation, I think it's fair to say. Obviously, the 2 goals back in the end probably flattered Burnley, but Chelsea really, is that 7 in a row, I believe, now in all competitions.
Yeah.
They're looking fantastic.
Well, a couple of things. I don't think Hudson-Odoi was simulation. I think he got a push in the back.
Okay.
I think he's exaggerated the fall. I think the push wasn't enough. I say it wasn't enough. I think outside the box, maybe a ref would have given that, because there was a definite push in the back, but no one's looking at the push. Everyone's looking at the feet, because they're thinking that it's come from there. So if you look at everyone looked at, well, he hasn't been clipped. No one's seen the push.
This way, rightly or wrongly, there's a skill in this. Like some of the players, we've seen the one now. People are cottoning on to the drag the foot into the other player. People have cottoned onto that now. They didn't 5 years ago. People thought that was a penalty, but now you're kind of seeing that's a way in which you can make it look real. It is that one where you think back in the day, the kind of Jurgen Klinsmann-esque one, where it would be throwing as you're going down, the arms are going in the air, you can see them scream, a real exaggeration. Of course, no one does that now, because even if you are fouled and you do that, you're not winning a penalty.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's now that subtle art of, okay, if you're fouled, you're fouled, but how do you make sure you don't over-exaggerate, which is going to put a ref off? But similarly, you need to give enough, otherwise people are going to be, well, no, that's a bit innocuous. Yeah. So it's...
And that's where he is. I mean, I thought... Initially, I thought it looked like a pen, and then when they slowed it down, he hasn't been touched. Yeah. And even us, we're all sitting, everyone, no one saw the push in the back. Yeah. Everyone's looking at the feet until you see him mouth, I've been pushed. Now you look up. It's almost like, because you're all looking down at the feet. Now you look up. There was a push. And the thing about it is, when you're going at pace and you're deviating from left to right, if you just, and it's a balance of power. If you're, if you're sort of, I suppose, if you change direction and all your weight is on one side, or it's as you move, someone pushes you, it can change the way you fall. But in that aspect, booking him's harsh, I think.
Yeah.
but he's also got to learn.
Yeah, he has. There was an interesting one, Saka, I think it was, for Arsenal against Sheffield United. Similar. Well, look, it is easy to go down, and that for me was a really harsh booking, again, because it's one where, as you say, you're drinking left and right, you're low centre of gravity. It's very easy to go down. Players go down all the time, and I think it's just it's become a bit black and white, where it's either a penalty or it's a booking.
Yeah.
And there isn't actually a middle ground, which there can be. Sometimes they'll go down, but it's not quite enough for a penalty, but also it's not enough for a booking, I think.
Sometimes people got to know the sport, know the intention, because sometimes with some it's a definite dive, and there's a difference between also being a very good faller and not. One of my coaches used to say there's some people who are such good fallers, the foot doesn't even have to be close, and you are so convinced that they've been fouled. Yet there are some who are just terrible.
Dreadful. Well, there was an interesting one yesterday in the Brighton-Everton game, the penalty that made it 2-2, which at the time, and even the commentator said, oh, well, there's nothing in that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see the replay, like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Stamped on his foot. Yeah, well, didn't mean it, Keane,
no, but
it's still a foul.
Still a penalty. Just to touch on, obviously, so good win for Chelsea, of course, 4-2. Interestingly for me, we're now starting to see a divide, the top four. And by the way, we've got to talk about the Leicester game. I know I say it's old news. It's not old news. I mean, to win 9-0 away is just watching that game, and the moment it goes 6, and you can see the Leicester players getting excited, thinking, actually, we've got a chance here.
I actually thought this is going to be 10.
Yeah.
This is going to be 10.
I tweeted, I think it's going to be exactly that, because you could see that Southampton were just dead and buried. And actually, he's ended up making a few saves. It could have been 10 comfortably.
The thing about it is, Rich, as far as I'm concerned, and you know yourself, I'll say this often, when you go a man down, your mentality changes. Right. For the next 10 minutes, we're going to concede nothing. We're siege mentality. Yeah. I didn't see that in Southampton at all. They carried on playing like the opponents had 10 men. They were so open, and as the goals were going in, you're starting to think, well, no, we've got to block it up now. And at no point, that's the bit I don't understand.
It was so concerning. I think, and this is coming from a former... I've been involved in, not games like that where we've been beaten that heavily, but games where you turn up and it's wet, it's windy. Yeah. I mean, I was watching the analysis and stuff beforehand, the building up to the game, and it was quite funny, really, with Jamie Carragher, with Gary Neville, and they're there with their umbrellas that are going everywhere. And it was just the worst interview ever, because there was so much... But that made me think, if you're a player going into that, and of course going down to 10 men, it was like the perfect storm, or in Southampton's case, the worst possible scenario, because they go 1-0 down, they go to 10 men in the same play, and you just felt, actually, this is going to be dangerous. Looking at Leicester, though, and of course you look at them now on the table, I wonder if that top four are going to start to break away. You know, I'm really impressed with Chelsea. I'm really impressed with Leicester. Of course, City and Liverpool, we know exactly what they're about. And I look below that. I mean, look, Arsenal, you'd like to think they can stay with that group. You'd like to think Tottenham can get themselves back up there. But actually, there seems to be a real divide now between that top four and the rest of the league.
Well, I look at it this way. The thing that keeps the top four at this moment is consistency. They are grinding out results. Whether they play well or not, they're grinding out results. Underneath that, you've got Arsenal, inconsistent. Crystal Palace, you haven't got a clue why they're there if you look at their performances. Sheffield United, new. Bournemouth, drawn their last 2 games, not scored a goal.
Mid-table for me, Bournemouth. Yeah. Same with West Ham.
West Ham, I mean, you know, they lose games they should be winning. Yeah. Spurs, well, I still maintain, I don't think they're as good as everyone thinks they are. That's just my personal opinion. So from 5th to 10th is inconsistent. Yep. Below that, it's not a problem. But above that, I just think those 4 teams are going to start to slowly move away.
I think so. They're by far, I look at them, you look at who's been impressive this season. Yeah. To us, those 4 have been very impressive. Yeah, Arsenal, a bit hit and miss for me. I think, you know, look, we know about United, Spurs, as you mentioned, and those other ones. Sheffield United, really, their goals are very much to stay in the league. And I think they're going to do much better than that. And again, seeing them yesterday again, they've got, I'll tell you what they've got, which not a lot of Premier League teams have got, is that grit. Yeah, they do. Is that they're so difficult to beat. Talking about Southampton, such a weak underbelly.
They had a soft centre. You know, sometimes teams reflective of their manager. Yeah. And that is a Chris Wilder side. Yeah. I know Chris, lucky enough to play with him at Charlton. No nonsense, got enough nous, won't give up, will stick their foot in, and will be a difficult team to beat.
Well, they do the basics well, but they've got that little bit of sparkle as well. And, you know, they talk a lot about the centre-backs doing the underlapping, overlapping. There's something a little bit different, but the core is perfect. They've got that spine of the team is in place. Yeah. Well, look, we're going to be talking, obviously, a lot of Premier League as the show goes on, but, of course, rugby is very much dominating the headlines, and, in fact, of course, Wales taking on South Africa shortly, which will be going on during our show, so we'll be talking about that as well. But we've got Andrew Baldock coming on next to talk about England's incredible victory yesterday.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it,
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not, but with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the rent, and. The cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids. So make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness. But childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
Love sport.
Love Sport Weekend Breakfast with me, Richard Lee and Paul Mortimer. We've talked a bit of Premier League, but of course the big news right now is very much the rugby. And we're delighted to say we've got Andrew Baldock, Press Association rugby correspondent, on the line now. Morning, Andrew. Keen to speak to you, obviously, about the game coming up today. Wales taking on South Africa, but we have to touch on the game yesterday. Want to get your take. In particular, the papers have gone quite big on the fact that England put the V in shape prior to the haka. What was your take on that?
Good morning, guys, from Yokohama. I thought it was a pretty good gesture by England, really. I mean, the haka, as we know, is a traditional All Blacks pre-match sort of event. England decided not to stand in the regulation line on their own 10-metre line. The way they did it, I thought, was quite impressive. If you look at the footage, it looks like they've actually engulfed the All Blacks. And I really thought that set the tone for the first half. It was almost like England saying, right, guys, you've got to break through us. We're not going anywhere. It was a lovely bit of theatre. No harm was done. England was still very respectful. And as for those first 20 minutes, if you can say such a thing as rugby perfection, that was pretty much it.
Andrew, I've got to ask, I mean, yesterday on this show we had Ian Hunter, who was the ex-England and Lions winger, in, and he was so nervous. He was so nervous. We were all sitting here. No one in this booth saw that first 20 minutes, that first half coming. It was the most complete performance. And I'm still shocked, actually. I mean, what were your expectations going into that first half?
Well, to be honest with you, I think we're all in agreement here. And I don't think any of us saw just how superb England would be in that opening 20 minutes. And it was some interesting stuff from Billy Bonapola afterwards, where he said England had talked all week about trying to, in his words, shock the All Blacks in the first 20 minutes. The All Blacks are so traditionally come out and basically dismantle their opponents in the first 20 minutes. Bonapola was saying, well, we weren't going to have that. We were going to take it to them and see what they had. And it was brilliant rugby. I mean, you've got to understand that this was a World Cup semi-final against a team that hadn't lost a World Cup match for 12 years. That's how good it was. And, 19-7, to be quite honest with you, it could have been 29-7. Nobody would have complained. It's very difficult to underestimate just how fantastic that England performance was yesterday.
And a word on Eddie Jones, because, it's been an interesting time. Really. I love his press conferences every time. You always get a soundbite or two from him. But in terms of the attention to detail going into this, which, I mean, even the V that we're talking about beforehand, like the small little details here and there, which have been driven by Eddie Jones. I mean, how has he handled this World Cup so far for you?
Oh, he's been brilliant. I mean, Clive Woodward, England's coach when they won the World Cup in '03, he always used to, one of his pet sayings was it's always about doing 100 things 1% better than the opposition. And I think Eddie is of a similar mind, really. I mean, you just look at his record, over the years with Australia, with England, his record in Super Rugby. The guy is just a genius at getting it right on the big occasion. And, nobody saw that coming yesterday. We all thought, in the press box, it'll be a close game, maybe one score either way, two very good teams, potentially the best two teams in the tournament, going at it hammer and tongs. But for England to produce such clinical, effectively mistake-free rugby under the most enormous pressure, honestly, it was one of the great sporting achievements, in my opinion.
And I wonder, looking at today's game, the impact that kind of result will have. Because if I look at Wales, Warren Gatland, I mean, he's stepping down after the tournament, so it's last chance saloon for him to get to the final. Now, I think Wales have a decent record against South Africa. So how do you see today's game going?
Yeah, you're dead right there. Wales have won 5 of the last 6 against South Africa, which is impressive. What I would say is this South African team is unquestionably stronger than any of those teams Wales have beaten in the last couple of years. My worry for Wales today, their back division has a bit of a patched up look to it. They've lost Liam Williams, arguably the best attacking fullback in Europe, with an ankle injury. Jonathan Davis is just back from a knee injury. He starts. We're not sure how long he'll last. Hadley Park's been carrying his shoulder and a broken bone in his hand. So you do think they're at the foot of the Himalayas really today. I think they'll cope with South Africa's physical threat, which is their trademark. But I just wonder whether Wales just may run out of steam in this one.
And is that where I was going to ask you where you think the game's going to be won or lost. So you think that Wales may not have enough in the tank. Does that mean that they're going to have to fly at it early and get as many points up and then hang on?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, the one thing Wales are under Warren Gatland, you've got to bear in mind, they've won 20 of their last 23 competitive test matches. So that's a pretty good record. They're an incredibly hard team to beat, as they showed against France in the quarterfinal, when, to be honest, they were outplayed for 60 minutes, but still got over the line. So there's an element of that. I'm not saying Wales are not going to win this game, but I think if they were to win it, it would be an outstanding achievement. And then it's all systems go for the small matter of an England-Wales World Cup final next Saturday.
But come on now. I mean, for me, that's what I'd love. I'd love an England-Wales. No disrespect to South Africa, who I think are a wonderful side. But for us, the England-Wales final would be absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, it would be an astonishing sort of event. I mean, there's never been an all-British World Cup final before. I mean, England are there. England clearly, stating the obvious really, after their performance yesterday, will be firm favourites next weekend, whoever they play. But I think for these two teams today, look, it's a World Cup final. They don't come around very often. They've got whoever wins, they're in the final, and it comes down to 80 minutes on the day. So let's wait and see. My money would be on South Africa, but as I say, I'm certainly not writing Wales off.
Yeah, interesting. I know Matt Dawson, pretty much at the start of the tournament, predicted that it would be an England-Wales final. So you're saying, I'm going to ask for a prediction, of course. So you're saying you think South Africa will edge it. I also want to get a prediction on the final as well.
I think if England reproduce anything like they showed yesterday, without being too straightforward, I think the trophy's theirs. I really do.
Wow, interesting, great stuff, Andrew. Really appreciate it, especially all the way from Japan. Do you know what? In fact, before you go, I do want to ask one more question on that, because of course you have been over there for the tournament. What has the vibe been like?
Oh, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant. I'd never been to Japan before. I've been here now for nearly 7 weeks. It's an amazing country. They've got behind the tournament. Obviously, the whole thing was lifted massively by Japan's incredible run. The people here are they're incredible. They're so kind. They're so hospitable. Just want to help you all the time. And it's been brilliant. And, let's just hope that, we were into the home straight now, as it were. Let's just hope these last couple of games, match their billing. And, whoever England play next week, let's just hope it's a fantastic occasion to send this event out on the high that it so richly deserves, really.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear. It's certainly one that's on my bucket list, I'm not going to lie. Andrew, really appreciate you coming on, as ever. Andrew Baldock, Press Association rugby correspondent, giving his thoughts on fantastic, well, not just result, fantastic game yesterday, and of course Wales taking on South Africa today. He made a point there that, and I suppose it's true, and this is where then there will be the pressure on England, is that, of course, if they reproduce that, then the trophy is theirs. I don't think anybody beats that, what we saw yesterday.
Well, no, like I said, apart from the line-out mistake.
One mistake. That was it, though, wasn't it? Yeah.
One mistake. And really, England had 2 tries disallowed as well.
Yeah.
So it could have been even more. So it was the most complete 80 minutes. And when you consider the what's at stake, you know, the pressure that's on, you know, to put in that kind of performance against that opponent is just a magnificent achievement.
That was the one for me, in that things did go against England. The fact that those 2 tries were it's a horrible moment, isn't it, when you know you see the excitement, the try go, and then all of a sudden it is the whole VAR.
Yeah,
you know, it's that moment again where you're like, you know, it's going to be, and then you see it, it's going to be disallowed, and it's all of a sudden like everything is deflated slightly, and you worry, is that going to impact the team? Then the mistake, and you think, do you know what, New Zealand are getting back in this. Even at half time at 10-0, sorry, all the commentators were saying, actually, New Zealand will be absolutely delighted that it's only 10. You're thinking, all it takes is a couple of mistakes, and suddenly New Zealand could have been winning that game.
But they didn't. I mean, if you consider, we're sitting here watching it, and what we're saying, it's the unspoken thing, but it's New Zealand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's New Zealand. It's like Man City being 3-0 down at half time, but it's Man City. Yeah. But it's New Zealand, so you're always expecting them. And then halfway through the second half, Ian Hunt here was just like so nervous, and then he was like, with 3 minutes to go, we've won it. Yeah, that's the only time he actually admitted it.
Do you know what it was? And even at like 78 minutes, and I'm watching, and it was just then, it was only at that point, you're like, okay, it's done now. Like, it's done. And because they just kept going wave after wave, and they were defending the way they were, you felt, this is incredible, you know. And I'm like, I say it too often, like I watch rugby. I wouldn't say I was the biggest rugby fan, but like everybody else yesterday, I'm watching it, and I was a bit emotional at the end, because you're buzzing. You're like, this is incredible.
It was. I mean, if we look at it now, I mean, now the game's over and we're looking to the next game, I'd have to ask you, okay, how often in your career has a team put in 2 of those performances on the trot?
Back to back.
It's a really difficult thing to do, because the second one, so much can go against you.
Yeah. Well, that was it for me. And you know, I was looking at, I suppose, different things as the mentality. You know, some of the iconic images we're seeing this morning. I mean, Farrell kind of smirking during but it's all these little touches, and that's what adds to it. And you just felt, and as soon as that whistle went at the end, also I like the fact they didn't over celebrate. It was almost the case of, right, do you know what, one more step. And they know, and that's where I'm so confident now. I wasn't confident, by the way, just more for the fact that New Zealand are as good as they are. So going into this, I wasn't massively confident.
Yeah.
However, now I would be. Whether it's South Africa or Wales, I'll be massive. If they do that again, what they did yesterday, and they have that same mentality more than anything, then the odds will massively be in their favour. It would be some bad luck that would have to go against them. And I just get the impression Eddie Jones, he's brilliant at what he does. No, he's brilliant at what he does. I love his interviews, how it's the way in which his mind works. Yeah, I'm fascinated by how his mind works.
It doesn't allow that. I think they've been so well prepared. That's the thing. And that's why I think they can maybe not have the sparkle.
Yeah.
But the actual mechanics of that performance, I think they will produce.
Well, that's it. He doesn't seem to buy into a lot of the opinions. People are asking him questions, and he bats them off because he'll always then come back to the process as opposed to necessarily the result. Even when they're talking to him about the result, it was more, he straight away came back to, look, we did certain things right. We come back to the performance, and the result will take care of itself.
Exactly right. And that's what he's saying. If we can be consistent in these areas, with the sparkle we know we've got, if we can just be consistent there, that will take us up another level. And I think that is a performance that the South Africans and the Welsh will be looking at and going, we're going to have to be at our, we're not there yet, but we're going to have to be at our best. And I think we catch them on a bad day.
I'm about to say that. It's fair to say I think they're going to have to be at their best, and England will have to be slightly below par, and a bit of luck involved.
Yeah, but I mean, I look at it. It's a wonderful. You know what? As an athlete and as someone who's played in team sports, when you see a near perfect game, it really is. But it doesn't matter what sport. It was just because you know the hard work and application and sacrifice that has gone into that perfect 80 minutes. It's brilliant to watch.
Did you ever play the perfect game, Mr. Mortimer?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I've played a couple of games. I can remember them where, do you know what it is Rich? It's not necessarily that I performed well, but I just felt like after the end of the game, I could have played another game. I just felt rid that face. I can see that face.
No,
so you're going to say
I'm
something. But do you know what I mean? I mean,
No.
yours would just be being able to catch straight.
Oh, here we go.
I'm just getting it in.
I'm not saying anything. I was actually going to give you a compliment there. Right, I'm not giving it anymore. Fine. 28 minutes to 9.
Love Sport. Follow @Love Sport Radio on Twitter for all the latest news, views, competitions, and the best bits from your favourite station. Love Sport, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire. Oh, what a goal! Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club. Absolutely brilliant. Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free. Because there's only one you.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident. And save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
Aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Paul Mortimer here with you until midday. Let's touch on the top stories this morning. England's rugby union players dominate the back pages after making the World Cup final with their convincing win over New Zealand. In football, the Mirror reports that Manchester United chief executive Peter Kenyon, a former Manchester United chief executive, I must say, Peter Kenyon, is looking to broker a deal for a US investment group to buy Newcastle, while the Sun says it looks as if Mesut Ozil will be on his way in January. Today in the rugby, Wales hope to set up a Rugby Union World Cup final with England later. They face South Africa in the last four in Yokohama. Wales last reached the semi-final 8 years ago with George North, one of the survivors from that squad. In the boxing, Derek Chisora secured a stoppage win over David Price in their all-British heavyweight boxing match in London. And in regards to the football results yesterday, wins for City, Chelsea and a damaging defeat for Everton. We're going to move on now to a little bit of F1 because, of course, there is a big race going on. Red Bull's Max Verstappen has been demoted from pole position at the Mexican Grand Prix by a penalty for ignoring warning flags. The Dutchman was given a three-place grid drop and will start fourth behind Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. And Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen failed to slow down for a yellow flag caution yellow flags after a crash by Hamilton's teammate Valtteri Bottas. Delighted to say we're joined by Michael Laminato, F1 writer, to help go through this with us. Morning, Michael.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Morning. Yeah, morning. Good. I say morning. I don't think it is morning where this race is going on, of course, over in Mexico. So keen to get your thoughts on this. Max Verstappen not happy being demoted from pole. Was it a fair call?
Yeah, it absolutely was a fair call. Of course, he wouldn't be too happy. He never seems that happy whenever he's sort of pulled up for stuff like this. But it is a bit strange because it was really, to be diplomatic, quite silly a mistake for him to make. We're not actually that used to seeing him make mistakes like this anymore. He's matured so much in the last year, but to ignore a yellow flag directly where there's a crash at the end of qualifying, where there's no runoff as well, is really a pretty slam dunk, straightforward safety penalty, and he really can have no arguments against that, I think, as in fact the stewards ended up finding.
Is there any way he could have, bear with me, is there any way he could have missed the flag? Because I was reading about he gets information on his dashboard and there wasn't that information. I think Christian Horner was talking about they didn't give him the information on the dashboard. So it was almost like sounding like, oh, he was so unlucky. Is that possible that you could miss the yellow flag?
Yeah. I mean, of course it's possible, but in a situation like this where you also had a number of other drivers see the flag, it's kind of hard to mount that argument. And at the end of the day, the flag is kind of the last defense, if you like. There are electronic boards and there are warnings in the cockpit. Even if they weren't working, the flag was still out, and the flag is the last thing you really got to look at. So if the flag is out, there has to be a penalty. But more to the point, and this is where he really tripped up. This is where he really can't have anywhere to hide. He admitted it afterwards. He admitted it after qualifying, before he'd even been called, before there was even an investigation. He said, I saw the flag, this is a paraphrase of course, but I saw the flag and I decided to go for it anyway. I mean, that's just, come on, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Talking about the race itself, of course, Lewis Hamilton could become world champion for the sixth time if he outscores Valtteri Bottas by 14 points. Of course, Bottas starts sixth on the grid, Hamilton third. Do you expect Hamilton to get it done here in Mexico, or do you think we'll wait till the United States?
I think we're going to be waiting another week. It makes it sound like it's such a long time. We know the title's coming. It's just a matter of when. But 14 points is a little bit too much for Hamilton at this track, I think. Notwithstanding that Bottas obviously looks a bit out of sorts, having crashed at the end of qualifying. But Mercedes has typically not been very strong here, and it looks very much like that again. Something about the way they package that car just does not suit the high-altitude nature of this track. Cooling's really hard, and they can't extract the maximum from their engine. They weren't that far off on single pace, about half a second. And in race pace, they look like they're going to be a bit closer. But as we've sort of seen, in fact, in a trend for the last couple of races, not to mention the trend of the last couple of Mexican Grand Prix, they're just not at it at this track. So 14 points, you'd need to win the race and Bottas not finish on the podium. So it's a gap of too many places. I don't see it happening today, but you'll only have to wait another 7 days, I suspect.
And Michael, now normally with Formula One races, you know, when people talk to me about them, they talk about a great start, the overtaking in the middle and the end. This time round, it's about the start, because Ferrari locks out for the second race in a row, but they don't seem to start well. Mucked it up in Japan. How do you think they're going to go this time?
Well, the start really is going to be key for them, because this is exactly the situation they faced actually in Russia. I know they both had bad starts in Japan, but this is more directly comparable to Russia, where they locked out the front row. They had good starts, but unfortunately the slipstream here is so powerful. It's such a long run down to the first corner that it seems actually like Sebastian Vettel is prone to probably have a better start here. In fact, Charles Leclerc, before Verstappen had been penalised, said he was actually quite happy to start second because he'll slipstream behind Verstappen, rock into the lead at the first turn, and then can control the race from there. So Ferrari's got this weird team order situation. It said it's not afraid to try and manage the drivers like they did in Russia when Vettel reneged on an agreement from before the race to give the place back to Leclerc after he started second and moved into first at the first braking zone. So it's really going to be all eyes on Ferrari to see how they manage that sort of bubbling team dynamic we've got between Vettel and Leclerc about who wants to be in control of that team. That's what's to watch for.
And all of this sort of plays into Lewis Hamilton's hands, because all of this controversy sort of lets him slip under the radar. And, you know, for the last couple of weeks, it's almost been like that. You know, other people have made mistakes and won stuff, and he's just slowly, under the radar, no fuss, been able to go and collect the points. And it appears that that's going to happen again today.
It is a little bit like that for Hamilton. I mean, it's very easy comparing him directly to Ferrari when Bottas is not really at his level. I mean, no disrespect to Bottas, of course, but he's sort of blown him away really in that middle part of the season, even if Bottas is sort of getting a little bit back right about now again, notwithstanding that crash. But that's kind of Hamilton's way. It's that not that he doesn't go to seek headlines or anything like that. We know he's got a big personality, let's say, and he's not afraid to speak his mind. But he is just so consistent on the racetrack that you almost really have to think about what he's going to do, because you know he's going to get pretty much the maximum from the car. And if we want to talk about this race in particular, Ferrari make a mistake up front, you know he's going to be there. Even if his car is not absolutely the quickest, he's always going to be a threat. So, in that regard, you can't write anything off about Lewis Hamilton this weekend in terms of the result of this race.
A couple of drivers I want to ask you about, because I'm looking, it looks like you say Lewis Hamilton, whether it's this race or the next race, it's going to be pretty comfortable. Another championship, fantastic. Moving forward, who are going to be his biggest rivals? And obviously Charles Leclerc looks like he's going to be a serious threat. Lando Norris as well, is there or thereabouts?
Yeah, Lando Norris has really been quite impressive this season. I want to say I'm too surprised because he was very good in Formula 2 last year and very highly rated, but he's gotten to grips with being in a car that is in the midfield, so always having to race people, not really having races that are extremely comfortable, let's say. He's gotten to grips with that extremely quickly. He's up against Carlos Sainz, who's a really talented driver as well. He showed himself quite well in the junior years against Max Verstappen, for example. And he's doing such a really good job. He's not perfect, but we know that really in the space of a couple of years, assuming that McLaren can continue to build on this recovery and become a front-running car again, then you would absolutely expect Lando Norris to be one of these drivers that Hamilton will be competing against. Although, of course, we should add the asterisk that there are very different points in their careers. Lando Norris is obviously a rookie, very young, and Lewis Hamilton, while, loath to try and connect him to retirement in any way, because it sounds like a terrible rumour, but you'd think he could only have so many more years, maybe, let's say, 4, if you like, or thereabouts. So there will be this brief crossing window, I suppose. It would be really fascinating, a handing over of the torch, if you like. But after that, Lando Norris is one of the guys who will be the next leader rather than someone who'll be competing with Hamilton.
Great stuff. Michael, as always, appreciate you joining us. That's Michael Laminata, their F1 writer, giving us his thoughts on the Mexican Grand Prix, which, of course, takes place today. We're going to be talking a little bit of EFL shortly. We will have Gab Sutton, our EFL expert, on the line. That'll be coming up next.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Find out what you need to do to prepare at gov.uk/Brexit.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids, so make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
This is Love Sport.
That's what we can breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Paul Mortimer. Of course, we spoke a lot of rugby, a lot of Premier League, but there was a full list of fixtures in the Championship, League One and League Two yesterday. We're going to be talking to Gab Sutton very shortly in regards to some of these results. Just want to touch on the Charlton result because, of course, we do have our very own resident Charlton expert here, Mr. Paul Mortimer, and they had a very good result, drawing 2-2 away at West Brom. It's been an interesting week for Charlton, of course, going down to Bristol City in the week, but I was at the game and it's fair to say it was very harsh. However, they conceded a last-minute goal last time out. They scored a last-minute goal yesterday.
I think Charlton have been absolutely brilliant. Struggled against, unlucky against Bristol City, who are going to be looking to finish in the top 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Against a team at the top of the table, done absolutely magnificent. When you consider they've played Leeds and beat Derby, in the last month or two, they've had some really difficult games. And against the teams you're not expected to get anything about, against West Brom, you're not expecting that to do it so late as well. They're going to do well to keep this Lebo. You've only got a year.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It really is. And this is all done without Lyle Taylor, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is huge for Charlton.
Macaulay Bonds really stepped up.
Brilliant.
Well, like I say, delighted to say we are joined by our EFL expert for Football Lab, Gab Sutton. Morning, Gab.
Morning, folks. How are you?
Morning. Yeah, good. Lots of results I want to touch on, actually. The big one, of course, up the top of the table was Sheffield Wednesday Leeds. The Yorkshire Derby finished 0-0. A better result for Leeds than Sheffield Wednesday?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose the positive from Leeds' point of view is that it's a clean sheet for them, and they have been strong defensively this year with obviously Ben White doing very well and Luke Ayling back in contention for them as well. But I think going forward, there's still question marks. I mean, Marcelo Bielsa's very loyal to Patrick Bamford starting up top. I think he feels that Bamford contributes to a better all-round game in terms of running the channels and holding the ball up and all the rest of it. And then he likes Nketiah coming on for the last 20 minutes for that sort of raw pace. And Nketiah's been in brilliant goal scoring form. So they bring different qualities. I think a few Leeds fans would like to see Eddie Nketiah start a little bit more often for them, though. And you'd have to say they are low scoring. I think they've scored 10 fewer goals than the top scorers in the league. So probably there's positive aspects from their season so far, but they do need to be a bit more clinical.
Yeah, it's interesting on that with Nketiah, because I know there's so many clubs that wanted him at the start of the season. I suppose they've got a slightly political one as well. If they don't play him, he may well look to go back to Arsenal in January and maybe go on loan to another Championship club. So I guess they've got a decision to make there. Just touch on a couple of other results. Birmingham beat Luton 2-1. Good win for them. Basement battle between Huddersfield and Barnsley. Huddersfield came out on top. Hull beat Derby 2-0. Want to talk about the Middlesbrough-Fulham game for a couple of reasons. Obviously, one, it involves our London club, Fulham, who currently reside in 5th place. Middlesbrough, however, that draw has now meant that they've sunk into the bottom 3, which for me, to see Stoke and Middlesbrough currently in the bottom 3, I don't think anyone would have predicted that 14 games in.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think from Stoke's point of view, they've probably got a squad that's ready-made to be competing for that top 6, if not in it. I think from Middlesbrough's point of view, you can maybe forgive their bad start a little bit more, because I think this was very much a transitional move to appoint Jonathan Woodgate. They're gravitating towards younger players, maybe a slightly different style of playing. I think you can forgive to an extent that it's transition, because a lot of the reserve players, if you like, are essentially players who've come through the youth system. So I don't think it's a top 6 squad by any means at all. Having said that, I still think that Jonathan Woodgate, he's not got much experience as a number one. He's also got to deliver results and performances that suggests he is the one Middlesbrough fans want going forward, and he hasn't delivered that so far. And I think that would be a concern. I think Middlesbrough are patient, but it's how patient they can be, and they're currently in the bottom 3, which is probably a bit off where I think they'd hoped to have been more of a mid-table side at this stage. So there's certainly concerns on Teesside.
I have to say, Gab, I'm worried about both of them. I'm worried because I've seen it with Charlton, seen it before with Leeds, where people weren't cautious enough, didn't recognise it early enough. They could be down there for the rest of the season and find themselves in a battle that those players are not equipped to be able to deal with. And I worry about that. And, Jonathan Woodgate, The thing about management is when it's going well, me and Rich here could manage, and you, Gab, we could manage a side. He'll have never experienced this before, and that's the problem. And I don't think he will know how to dig his team out of it, and I think that's going to be difficult. What I did want to talk about is Millwall, Gary Rowett. I mean, how good a start, and how gratifying that must be. How great he must feel to get one over on the club that sacked him.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that interests me about Millwall's win yesterday was the comments from the Millwall fans about how Rowett's not had an awful lot of time with the players, but instantly they look more at ease. And it's actually only been 2 days of training with them. So I don't think it's necessarily anything tactical that's spectacularly different to the previous regime. It's just the players have that little bit more confidence. And, do you know, I sort of look at that and I just think the similarities between this and the start of Gary Rowett's time at Birmingham about 5 years ago, I think it is now, when just lost 8-0 to Bournemouth, and instantly Rowett gave the players simple instructions. There were one or two things that kind of put the players at ease, and instantly they passed the ball a bit more with a bit more confidence, and they looked more sort of composed, I suppose. And it's a very sort of striking similarity. And maybe I think the Millwall squad is good. I think it's at least as good as the squad that nearly reached the playoffs a couple of seasons ago. I think you look at players like Conor Mahoney, Ben Thompson, I'm a massive fan of. You got Jed Wallace there. Centre-back Perry Hutchinson was fantastic yesterday. You got Malumbi, who's Ireland under-21 captain. So I think there's a lot of good players in that team. Barkowski's made the most saves in the division. So certainly potential there. And maybe Rowett is the man they needed to get that potential out of that squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to mention a couple of the other results. In fact, the Nottingham Forest Reading game was postponed, waterlogged pitch. Preston beat Blackburn 3-2. We touched on the West Brom Charlton game, of course, drawing 2-2. Charlton nicking some valuable points at the moment. Just want to move into League One. Again, we've had a couple of postponements yesterday. I don't think we really fully appreciated just how bad the weather was this weekend. I think we saw it for those who watched the game on Friday night in the Premier League. Obviously, Southampton getting beaten 9-0. But we saw just how bad the weather was there. But interestingly, there was quite a few games called off, weren't there, in League One and League Two as well?
Yeah, the interesting thing, because I was actually at Accrington Stanley against Gillingham, and a couple of years ago, there's no chance that game being on. I mean, I remember Stanley had like something ridiculous, like 7 games called off due to waterlogged pitches one year when it wasn't in the correct sort of state. But actually this year they've invested in 350 grand worth of a new pitch, so it's a smoother playing surface, and it actually held out really well in the rain today, so they were able to get it on. So I think that was a really strong investment from Stanley's point of view, because it's actually quite surprising that they were the ones that were able to get their game ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it wasn't a good day in the end, though, losing 1-0 to Gillingham. Just to touch on Leyton Orient as well. So 3 games in now for the new manager, Carl Fletcher, and it's been, a 4-0 win, 4-0 defeat and a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think actually the 4-0 win at Grimsby was under Ross Embleton's tenure. I was kind of a watching brief for Carl. But yeah, I think it's sort of probably a mixed start from his point of view. I think that he'll take encouragement from his side's first half performance against Carlisle, but naturally after the travel arrangements in midweek where they went down to Argyle, probably complicating matters. And I think Fletcher knew that maybe there'd be a period where they dropped off, and I think we saw that a little bit in the second half. I personally think it's a season of consolidation for Orient. I can't necessarily see them going big in terms of strengthening the squad in January. I think it's more of a year of consolidation, and I think they'll be good enough to stay up, especially with only one team going down this year.
Fantastic as always, Gab. Really appreciate you joining us. Gab Sutton, EFL expert for Football Lab, giving us his thoughts on the EFL yesterday. Of course, we've got some interesting games coming up today and tomorrow. The big one tomorrow, of course, Brentford taking on QPR at Loftus Road, of course. It will be, and actually looking at the league at the moment, so Bristol City do have the chance of going second today. Of course, if they don't get a victory today, then QPR will have the chance of going second in the table.
It's absolutely ridiculous, and you know they've been brilliant. Mark Warburton's done a magnificent job so far, but you look at all the teams around, and you look at have to go back to it, the great job that Bowyer's done and Warburton, because both sides, for differing reasons, have no money, have no resources, don't have the ability to bring in, highly fancied players, are both having to go to their youth squads and good recruitment. Both of these you'd have thought would have been, in the bottom half of the table. Let's not kid ourselves, It's a magnificent achievement so far. And do you know what? Just the race to 50 points, that's it.
Yeah.
For both.
Well, do you know what I find? We're talking about Sheffield United in the Premier League, that I think it gets overlooked sometimes that if you just get the basics right, and you're hard to beat and you've got the right type of characters within the squad, then you can get that little bit of stardust, but you've got something to build on.
It's a consistency to that, because once you get the consistency, the confidence comes, and now we've both played in teams that we ain't going to get beat. We know we're not going to get beat if we get these things right, and it doesn't matter if we play poorly. We can just turn defeats into draws and draws into wins because of how we play.
And you end up building a season. Of course, Bristol City taking on Wigan today. If they do win, they will go second. Swansea taking on Cardiff as well.
Good game, that one.
Interesting derby, that one. So that is coming up at 12 o'clock. The time now is 3 minutes to 9.
This is Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Henna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Find out what you need to do to prepare at gov.uk/Brexit.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a spokesman said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a spokesman said on his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
First weekend breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer, here with you all the way until midday. Still loads to come in the show. Of course, in the next hour, we will be going through all the papers. We do have our very own Will Beckman in, of course, to go through that, which is largely dominated with the rugby. And actually, as we speak, the game between Wales and South Africa is about to get underway. Exciting game. Who will England face in the final? We shall soon see. As always, you can get in touch. 0208 70 25 58 on the WhatsApp. We are on YouTube these days as well. Feel free to tune in, or at Love Sport Radio on the socials. The time is 9 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 9. Unconfirmed reports claim the Islamic State leader's been killed in a US military operation in Syria. Last month, in an audio message, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi spoke about prison breaks. Major General Chip Chapman is the former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence. He says the decision to pull US troops out of Syria could have an impact.
Because of the Kurds having to draw back, I think there will be more prison breaks which actually happen as a result of this, with people replaying his audio message from that time. So one of the short-term things again will be, I think, that you'll see more prison breaks as well as more attacks.
Donald Trump's due to make a major statement later. Relatives of people feared to have died in a lorry container in Essex are waiting to find out if their loved ones are among the 39 victims as tests are carried out. It's thought many may be Vietnamese. One man has been charged with their manslaughter. The Lib Dems and SNP are backing Boris Johnson's request for a general election in December, but on one condition. They want to remove the chance of no-deal Brexit and have asked EU Chief Donald Tusk to grant the UK a 3-month delay. Relatives of a British backpacker missing in Cambodia have flown out to the country to join the search efforts. 21-year-old Amelia Banbridge from West Sussex disappeared after attending a beach party on the island of Koh Rong on Wednesday. Wales are just kicking off their Rugby World Cup semi-final with South Africa. They're aiming for a third time lucky after 2 previous defeats at this stage. These fans in Yokohama are optimistic about their chances.
We've beaten them last twice, and I think we'll do it again today. We love to be the underdog.
Well, the team that'll win will be the ones that play better without the ball. I think the kicking game's going to be massive for Wales.
We've got as much chance as South Africa. We've beaten them in the last 4 times we've played them, so they should be more nervous of us than we are of them.
And just a reminder that the clocks have gone back 1 hour after British summertime ended earlier this morning. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
Love sport.
If there's one thing you can be certain of these days, it's uncertainty, particularly when it comes to getting a good deal. At SEAT, however, we're certain we can help with that. Get 0% APR finance across our entire SUV range, plus 2 free services on us until October 31st. Now there's a great deal, if ever there was one. Because they take, we give. SEAT.
Solutions Personal Contract Plan. Minimum 36-month contract on Arona and Ateca or 48-month contract on Taraco. Minimum 10% customer deposit. Registered by 31st of December 2019 from participating dealers. 18 plus, subject to status. Indemnities may be required. SEAT Finance. Visit SEAT.co.uk. Service plan covers first 2 consecutive services.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport.
Morning, Love Sport Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Paul Mortimer. We're going to be here all the way until 12. Let's touch on some of those headlines this morning in the rugby. England's rugby union players dominate the back pages after making the World Cup final with their convincing win over New Zealand. In football, the Mirror reports former Manchester United chief executive Peter Kenyon is looking to broker a deal for a US investment group to buy Newcastle, while the Sun says it looks as if the Arsenal board have backed Unai Emery's decision to have Mesut Ozil on the fringes of his squad. And the Mail on Sunday says a newly appointed medical expert to the Football Association has recommended the end of heading in children's football. Today in the rugby, Wales hope to set up a Rugby Union World Cup final with England later. They face South Africa. In fact, it has just got going. It is still 0-0, only a minute played in this one. In the boxing, Derek Chisora secured a stoppage win over David Price in their all-British heavyweight boxing match in London. And plenty going on in the football, which we're going to be talking, no doubt, over the next hour, as well as lots of rugby, because we are, of course, joined by Mr. Will Beckman. Morning, Will.
Good morning.
Good.
That sounds like I'm a rugby connoisseur, so I'll take that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
We're talking about rugby because I'm here.
Because you're here, because you have the physique of a rugby player.
What does that mean?
Well, you are. Well, I mean,
show your work.
I will try and describe you for
I'm
our
not
listeners.
dressed like a rugby player, actually.
No, this is true. This is true. I mean, what we saying? 18 stone, 19 stone, pure muscle.
Yeah, on a Sunday probably. Yeah, it's the end of the week, so.
But the back pages are very much
added up.
Indeed, they are very much dominated by the rugby.
They are all rugby, of course. Lots of different takes on what went on in Yokohama yesterday. I think my favourite one is possibly the front page of the Sunday Times' sports section, because their headline is victory, but they've got 2 different fonts for this word, because the second letter onwards, ictory, is written in standard text, and the V has been very kindly and generously provided by the England players.
Clever.
So they've used the V that the England players gave yesterday while the haka was going on, and used that as the start of their their word victory, which is very nice. England give a V sign to Haka before crushing All Blacks to make World Cup final. The Sun, incidentally, in one of their inside reports, also said that England flicked them the V. So that's got a lot of coverage yesterday, though. A lot of people were quite happy about how Owen Farrell was smirking away at the All Blacks as they did their thing. What else have we got? The Sunday Telegraph describes this as one of the greatest performances of all time on their front page. Says simply incredible. The Mail on Sunday suggests that England are on the brink of a new world order as they came through against the All Blacks. A nice picture of Owen Farrell with his fingers up celebrating. We've also got the Sun on Sunday, which sort of goes on to Eddie Jones's comments. Obviously, he said that England beat the god of rugby yesterday, so they've gone for hand off God with a nice footballing twist for all the Diego Maradona fans out there. Eddie Jones hails almighty win, and it says England are now the favourites to win a second World Cup after an astonishing semi-final win over holders New Zealand. So lots of jubilation. I find it hard to disagree. I think we are the favourites no matter who comes out of this match, which I believe is 3 minutes in now.
3 minutes in, still 0-0.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday's game was ridiculous. I mean, I think back on it now, it was just so perfect. And apart from the line out at the end, what I wanted to ask you though, as a journalist, is I wonder how the New Zealand press are they as brutal as our press?
Well, that's a very good question. I've only seen one front page from New Zealand, but it was quite a good one. The New Zealand Herald was black on its front page.
Oh dear!
As sometimes happens after sort of.
Mourning.
Yeah, they are in mourning. And it simply said, it's gone round social media actually. It simply said, the All Blacks are out of the World Cup. If you want to read more, go to the sports section. And if you haven't seen it, this is basically a black page with a tiny bit of text in the middle.
Wow.
Which was shown on television last night. So the Herald on Sunday is not happy about New Zealand.
No, for what it's worth, I thought Hansen dealt with the questions well. The bit that I saw
it was a bit feisty yesterday,
wasn't it? It was a bit feisty, but do you know what? That was in the press conference afterwards. The bit straight away after the game, I thought he was very, very humble, actually, in that bit where he was like, look, England were fantastic. I want to thank Japan. It's been a brilliant World Cup, and that was, I thought, do you know what? Credit to you. Like, he didn't make any excuses. It was just, no, look, England were brilliant today. They were better than us.
When you consider the emotions that he's going through there, because he did not, I don't care what anyone says, he did not see any of that coming. And you saw during the game, their players had that shell-shocked look. They had that blank look on their face where they just couldn't think their way out of what was going on, and they just couldn't handle it. England were that good.
There wasn't a moment in that match where England looked like they were going to lose it. No. From the start, they started quickly. They had no fear from the start. And they didn't really give them time to think.
I think it was just the fact that you expect, because New Zealand are that good, you just expected at some point that they were going to dominate for a period of time. And even when they scored the try, the way that England, and it was a gift, it wasn't, that was the one mistake England made the whole game. And then you thought, do you know what, this could be the catalyst. Yeah. Here we go. New Zealand go score another try and suddenly we're behind, and that you almost felt that would knock the stuffing out of us. But the way in which we came back from that.
Well, the thing about it was, I don't think it was something we came back from, because in order for us to come back, we would have accepted that we'd fallen, I just don't think they saw it that way. They just went, okay, that happened, okay, we're carrying on. There wasn't a body blow, if that makes sense, because normally that's a body blow. Yeah. But I just don't think they saw it that way.
That was the bit that I was most impressed with. We talk a lot about the mental side of sport, but it was the fact that it didn't seem to impact. Do you know what I'd liken it to is, I don't know, a team of 2-0 up, effectively, and the other team scores a goal. And how many times do we see that team suddenly defend for their lives and hold on to a 2-1?
13-0 is a dangerous lead in rugby.
All of a sudden,
there you go, that classic saying.
all of a sudden, it was, I mean, it's weird. The Chelsea game yesterday, all of a sudden, they're 4-2.
Yeah.
And you saw it a little bit there, where you're just thinking,
the game's 10 minutes longer. Yeah.
So, but the thing about it was, and I don't know about you, Will, sitting there watching the game, even with your journalist hat on, England 10-0 up at half-time, looking at their cruising. Tell me if you didn't think, but it's New Zealand.
Yeah, I did think that.
We all think they're going to come back.
Do you know what ended it? It was New Zealand got back to 13-7.
Yeah.
And immediately England put their foot back on the accelerator and got a penalty and went back to a 9-point lead. That's when I thought this isn't going to go wrong.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful.
They were just locked in. I can't remember. I think it was Maritoja maybe who I heard talking in the mix zone yesterday saying what was so good is we were engaged for 90 minutes, 80 minutes, because New Zealand can hurt you in any moment, and so concentration is going to be maybe more important than quality. Yeah. And they were absolutely on top of it. Lots of lovely prose about yesterday's performance in the Sun. Dave Kidd saying that basically absolute perfection is not possible in sport, but England got as close as you can get. And one thing that a lot of reporters have talked about this morning, he was one of them. I know Paul Hayward in his column in The Telegraph has said this as well, and Ollie Holt as well in the Mail on Sunday. One of the most encouraging things perhaps came after the final whistle, when England didn't really celebrate like you might have expected them to, given they've just beaten the All Blacks, because it echoes what Eddie Jones has said and what some of the players have said since. This isn't a victory. There's still a job to do. There's still one more step to take. So
I think they were knackered.
There was also that take.
Do you know what? I mean, Ian Hunter's sitting in there, and he actually said to me, Mort said knackered, because if you look, what it was for England, for me, was 80 minutes of ferocity. The tackling, the energy, it was just absolutely incredible.
The last 2 minutes for me summed it up, where it was that brick wall. It just felt like over and over and over again. And if anything, New Zealand weren't making any ground whatsoever. If anything, they was gradually losing more and more ground.
They were dropping further. I mean, in the last minute where they were throwing everything at it, England tackled, New Zealand threw it back, England were there again, and they threw it back, and they very rarely got into our 22 and caused us problems. It was brilliant.
It was a fact the scoreline flattered New Zealand. I think that was the thing. Look, we were talking beforehand, could England win? And I think the general consensus was we would win if we were perfect and New Zealand was slightly less than perfect and we got a bit of luck. Then we might have nicked the game. But actually, it wasn't that at all. We were as good as perfect, very, very close. But it was so comfortable. I mean, you look at it now, and it's easy to. At the time, it didn't feel comfortable because, of course, you got the normal nervousness that we would have as fans watching. But you look back now, black and white. Actually, I don't know what the stats were on the game, but I'm sure it was, which could have been a couple more tries.
Well,
had we not made,
like you say, it could have been 33 because the two tries that would.
Yeah. And it was New Zealand that had the luck of it.
Exactly,
they had so many breaks.
And New Zealand. I mean, Ian Hunter sitting there said, no, Paul, it wasn't that we were brilliant and New Zealand were poor. New Zealand weren't poor. They just weren't allowed to do what they normally do. England did not allow them to do it.
Yeah.
As good as a performance as you will ever see from an England side in any major team sport. It was off the scale, that good. That was Dave Kidd in the Sun this morning.
I mean, it doesn't matter what team play and what national side play. You just want to see them perform at that, when it matters.
Have we ever won the Cricket and Rugby World Cup in the same? I don't think we have.
That would be something, wouldn't it?
Of course.
Yeah, quite
obviously.
Well,
we got to the finals.
I'm right in thinking that we've never,
wouldn't it?
in any other sport, we've never won a World Cup twice, I want to say. I think that's true. So quote me if I'm wrong.
In fact, on that.
Indeed, you can quote me if I'm wrong. 0208 70 20 558. Of course, getting in touch on YouTube. Had quite a few messages through, actually. Clive Sangster has been... Here you go. Here's one for you, Paul. I'll give you a little bit of love. Morning, Richard and Charlton legend, Paul.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. That's from Clive. He wants your comments on Lee Bowyer. We'll do that in a bit, no doubt. And of course, we're on the socials as well, at Love Sport Radio. We're going to continue our rugby chat very shortly. It's still Wales 0, South Africa 0. 10 minutes gone in this one. We'll be talking more rugby next.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had to look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa!
Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids, so make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
This is Love Sport.
That's What Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer and Will Beckman going through the back pages. It's still Wales 0, South Africa 0, 13 minutes gone in this one. So Clive Woodward had his say.
So Clive Woodward is in awe of the entire England team, and he's not in awe very often. He's often quite critical in a constructive way, shall we say, of England and their performances. He certainly has been so far in this tournament. I expected the win. I've been sticking my head above the parapet and confidently predicting an England win all week. But what surprised even me was the 80-minute excellence of that display. So pretty similar to what we were saying. I can't imagine England have ever played better on the biggest stage. I felt a huge surge of pride watching this team and admiration for how clever and skilled they were. Eddie Jones has got this group ticking over beautifully. What a magnificent job he has done. He knows England must still go to the well, though, once more. So Clive Woodward last week did say in his column that England were due a performance for the ages after beating Australia. He said it would be a perfect opportunity to do it yesterday. And that's exactly what they did. He praised their variety that New Zealand couldn't cope with. He said they played with great tempo. They were powerful, disciplined, clever, indomitable, unmovable. Everything as a fan you'd want them to be. And his two standout players were Owen Farrell and Mauro Itoje. So lots of praise from Sir Clive Woodward and a lot of confidence ahead of next week's final against either Wales or South Africa. We will find out once the Wales players have stopped running into each other.
We will.
And,
we have a score.
And we have.
South points on the board. South Africa and it's successful. So South Africa are 3-0 up in this one, 14 minutes gone. Yeah, no, interesting. I mean, Sir Clive Woodward, watching him yesterday on the panel, and he was very complimentary.
He was beaming.
Yeah, he was. And Johnny Wilkinson, of course. It was... it was nice to... The thing was, what can you say? What possibly can you say after a performance like that? Like we say, at half-time, 10-0. And they were saying it with, it wasn't being arrogant or overconfident, but it was like, look, we should be a lot further ahead. Like, that was the concern.
Well, that's what they were saying. They were in the studio in ITV. They were saying New Zealand will be very happy that they're only 10-0 down. That's the best thing that's come out this half for them.
In fact, it was the first time I wish I get the year right now, but that New Zealand haven't scored in the first half. It's been like a long time. And you know what? I've said this without knowing the exact year, but it's been many years.
That's often a good idea on just...
Yeah, when you're going to read out
just think stats up on top of your head.
Yeah, I'd just make it... Should we just say 18...
Since 1843.
No, it was definitely for a few years, certainly for several World Cups ago. Of course, but look, this is a chance for England to win it's their fourth World Cup final. I do know that. They lost two, obviously won the one. The Johnny Wilkinson...
drop goal
against Australia, wasn't it? So going into this, and I guess that's it as well, whether they face Wales or South Africa, England will now be favourites. Does that change the dynamic at all? Given that they went into yesterday, I think most people had them as underdogs. I know Sir Clive Woodward didn't, but most people did. The bookies certainly did. Does it now change that they will be favourites going into the final?
I think it would be an awkward final for them if they play Wales, given what happened earlier this year. That might make them feel a bit of pressure. If they play South Africa, I don't necessarily think that there'll be a problem. It'll just be another Southern Hemisphere side that they've got to play better than.
This is the negative side of me. Wales have had their poor performance. Like, you feel that a lot of them, you'll have a poor performance.
So have we.
Have we?
Well, Samoa were rubbish. So you can beat... Argentina wasn't great, was it? I mean... We haven't had a stinking performance, admittedly.
No, that's the bit that worries me. Is I feel like it's been very comfortable. We haven't had a poor performance yet in the World Cup. I don't think.
As far as I'm concerned, it's not even... It's going to be about winning. The performance will take care of itself. If they get, like you said, I think the thing about England is, as you said with Eddie Jones, it's about the how they get the certain things right. It's about turning up and being consistent, not necessarily being spectacular, but being consistent. And throughout the tournament, that's what they've been. They were spectacular yesterday. They haven't been spectacular throughout. They've been consistent, got the job done, performed competently. And if they do that, next week, they're competitive animals, remember?
Yep.
If it's against Wales, I mean, it's going to be different if it's against Wales and South Africa, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we beat Wales, God, that's never going to be forgotten. If they beat
England,
us,
Wales,
oh my God.
Can you imagine?
So,
England, a week of build-up to an England-Wales Rugby World Cup final.
Well, Wales have given themselves a better chance now because it's now Wales 3, South Africa 3. That was a very nice pair, right in the angle as well. Good work there. So Wales back in this one.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's like I said, it's nip and tuck. This one.
Yeah.
It's gone from end to end. Both teams. It's fairly open and very, very competitive. You saw the two Wales guys trying to knock each other out. That's how competitive
Warren
it is.
Gatland nervously playing with the bottom of his jacket there, just trying not to get too carried away with what's going on the pitch.
It's a World Cup semi-final. It's perfectly all right to be nervous. You don't want to show it, but
there's
not a very nice landing.
No, it landed really bad.
Ouch.
Yeah, not a very, and then landed on by someone else. You have to remember it's a real brutal sport.
Oh, it's so brutal.
And these aren't overweight, out of shape men anymore. These are athletes.
When you're conditioned to that level, this is the thing, watching it yesterday, and that did make me think, when you're conditioned to that level, the hits they're taking, and they just walk away, they're just absolutely fine. They're so robust.
Technique says something about technique as well.
Yeah, it does indeed. Much more on the rugby, or should we move on to a bit of football?
I think let's move on to Captain America, if you like.
Let's do
That's
that.
football.
Mr. Pulisic, a good day for him.
Very good. A perfect hat trick.
Wasn't it just?
Yeah.
Left, right, and ahead. Have you ever scored a? In fact,
have you ever scored a perfect hat trick? Beggars cannot be choosers.
I've scored a couple of braces, never a hat trick.
Never a hat trick.
No.
Oh.
I should have had a hat
Paul
trick.
Mortimer
I've got to say, but I gave the penalty up to another teammate.
So selfless.
Who was on for a hat trick and missed.
No.
Then I scored a couple. Would have been a hat trick.
Is there a goalkeeping equivalent, like left hand save, right hand save, head save?
Let me think. What would be the
scorpion kick save?
I don't know.
I saved 3 penalties in a row in a game.
There you go.
Does that
in
count?
the same game?
Yeah, penalty shootout.
That counts.
That counts.
Yeah,
Against Charlton.
That's a hat trick.
That's their forward rolls.
There might have been a couple of forward rolls.
Well, by the third one, he couldn't. For the first one, but then on the second, talking about this.
Do you know what happened?
Hand in the air.
It was against Charlton. It was Johnny Jackson took the first penalty. I remember that. But I saved the third one. It was the first 3 of the shootouts. We ended up winning the shootout. But as I've saved the third, and I was buzzing, obviously, the ball's gone free when I've saved it. So I run over to the ball to smash it, and I felt a twinge in my hamstring. If you watch the footage, you see me wince. I'm so happy, and I smash it, and I land badly on my hamstring. I'm like, you idiot. It was so sore the next day. But worth it. Lots going on in the world of football. Of course, Pulisic was a perfect hat-trick.
It was, yes. Joe Bernstein, the Mail on Sunday, writing, reports of Chelsea's transfer ban have been greatly exaggerated. Frank Lampard has been able to call upon a £58 million signing this season, and yesterday Christian Pulisic showed why he was chosen as Eden Hazard's successor. He's the 21-year-old American's first Premier League start since August, and he proved beyond doubt he can handle a freezing Saturday night in Burnley. Nice bit of Andy Gray references in there. He's given Tammy Abraham a bit of a nasty surprise, because Tammy Abraham's record for being the youngest ever Chelsea player to score a hat-trick lasted 42 days. Because he scored, I think it was against Wolves, he scored a hat-trick, also in a 4-2 win away from home a month or so ago. Pulisic has already beaten that record, and so he's the youngest player in Chelsea's history to score a hat-trick, which again speaks to how many young players are getting a chance at Chelsea this season. I think at the moment Frank Lampard could turn anything gold at the moment, because it's one of those periods where everything is falling into place, and that's not to say that there's been another penalty. South Africa have made it 6-3
now. There's quite a few mistakes in this game so far. It has to be said. It's a bit nervy. I'm sorry, do carry on.
Yeah, so it's one of those periods where the man that you've frozen out for 2 months gets his first start and scores a hat trick. You bring on a substitute in midweek and he scores the late winner. You get a VAR call in your favour for a 1 centimetre offside. That's not to say that that they're being lucky, just probably that it probably won't last, because it's one of those periods where everything is just falling for you and you're making the most of it. But I didn't see 6 straight away wins coming after they lost 4-0 to United on the opening day of the season. That's quite impressive.
One of the things you have to remember with the 4-0 against Man United was, and he said it, Lampard's a red herring. It was, because Chelsea played really well in that game for a period.
For an hour, they were probably the better team.
But what they've shown is what they've shown throughout. Even yesterday is a naivety, is an inability to see, because that should have been 4-0.
Yeah, and I was annoyed as a Chelsea supporter that was 4-2 because that shouldn't happen. You know, it never got to the stage quite where it was at risk, but you imagine it's 2-0 and that happens. You know, it's just the mentality, and that makes me
back to Derby last season. It's the openness with which they play. There's a naivety to that was with Derby. There was a strength to them, but there was a naivety. Some of Chelsea's football yesterday was absolutely magnificent. It really was. And as a Chelsea fan, it must irritate you that you concede 2 goals when you were so commanding and the football was wonderful.
It's just so unnecessary. I mean, I'm probably a curmudgeonly young fool, but that annoys me. I like teams that don't concede goals. Just don't give up stupid goals. Like, why? It's hard to score goals, so it's easier to not concede goals. Just make things easier for yourself. You're going to disagree with me now, I know.
No,
but
I'm not. No, because I'm a goalkeeper. Like, I love a 0-0 draw.
It's very. It's
so
in your
excited.
interest to say it's very difficult to keep a clean sheet, because then that means you did a great job whenever you kept one.
It is. It's No, it is, and the amount of pride you take. I hated it when I remember one game in particular. I think we were 5-0 up. We ended up winning 5-3 because we conceded 3 goals in the last 5 minutes. It was just like, and it was just everybody had switched off because we'd won the game. But I don't know. I mean, this was it. 4-2 in the end flatters Burnley, so we have to take the positives, which was the first 80-odd minutes. But yeah, you're right. I think it's more so from a defensive, the pride of the team. It looks good when you keep keeping clean sheets. We were talking earlier about Sheffield United and what they're building upon. It is that solid defensive base, and that's the bit where Chelsea, at times, by the way, they've shown it. They've had a couple of clean sheets recently.
They've definitely shored up a lot in the last few weeks or so, that's for sure.
But this is a good example, again, where it's not quite... Look, it's never going to be solved, of course, but there is still that slightly weak underbelly.
Well, the thing about it is it's not so much that teams are scoring, it's the frequency with which they create chances and goal-scoring opportunities. That's the thing. And what you find with Chelsea, in my opinion, I've watched a bit of them this season, is... there isn't right, for the next 5 minutes, let's just sit in and keep possession and keep them away from our goal. No, they still play open, expansive football. There were spells yesterday at 4-2. They're still passing it round the back. But for a trip, they could have been in a bit of trouble. And I know you want to play that way, but also there's in-game management. You concede 2 goals, now you've got to tighten up a little bit. You can't continue to play that way. And you know, like I say, I see that naivety that I saw in Lampard's team in Derby last year.
On a positive with Pulisic, obviously the fact that it was a hat-trick, perfect hat-trick. He's not had an easy start, it's fair to say, at Chelsea. Obviously,
played well in the Super Cup and disappeared since then.
Well, you got the impression that maybe Frank Lampard wasn't really having him.
Well, we said that last week, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, but then all of a sudden, look, the fact is that I mean, being as young as he is, and he's so highly regarded in America, I know it's very different. He's done well for the national team, of course. I don't know. There's something there. You know, seeing that yesterday, there's something there. It was interesting when he celebrated. Like, you can read too much into this sometimes, but you could see there was a bit of anger for me. Like, where I guess he has probably been frustrated with the situation. But this might just now give him that step up that he needs. And again, it puts him on the map, if nothing else.
Yeah. He's been booted out in favour of Hudson-Odoi in the last couple of weeks. So that's going to be an interesting battle, because I'm not sure both are going to fit in the same team, but it gives him options. You know, Chelsea are in Champions League and they're in the Premier League, so they'll all get their chances.
Well, we go back to that top 4, and we were talking about earlier, like the top 4 have looked very, very good, you know, and they're not there by luck, it's fair to say. The thing that Chelsea do have is they've got a lot of goals in them.
Yeah, and they're going to need them. The way they defend, they're going to need them. I mean, what worries me is as they get closer and closer to the end of the season, when things really count and they need to keep clean sheets, or they get further in the Champions League and it's like the Ajax game the other day, they win 1-0 and it's tight. Can they keep things tight? Can they see things off? Can they manage situations? I mean, that's I think why he was happy the other night at Ajax. Is they scored against a decent side and managed to keep a clean sheet. Now, that's what they need to do far more consistently than they have.
Just looking at this top 4, obviously Arsenal, Spurs and United all play today in different matches. Arsenal are 5 points off, Spurs are 8 points off, United are 10 points off. They've got to win today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Spurs are at Anfield as well.
Yeah, right.
Spurs could be 8 points off the top 4 if they lose today.
It feels to me that I could see that top 4 breaking away. But we've said since the start of the season, Leicester could be contenders for top 6. No, they are serious contenders for top 4.
They are at the moment, for sure. I mean, you know, even if they're not going to win 9-0 every week, that was maybe a bit of an outlier, but They are one of the 4 most convincing teams we've seen so far in the league.
The thing with a result like that as well, their goal difference is so positive right now. That's kind of, again, whether that'll ever be needed or if it's needed, but more so, it just looks impressive. You look at the top of the table and those top 4 teams.
14, 23, 17, so it's better than Liverpool.
Well, it'll be needed to keep them in the top 4, because if they're battling for the top 4, it's going to be with what? Chelsea, Arsenal, Crystal Palace and Sheffield United are up there, but can't see that.
Come on, Chris Wilder.
Their goal difference is 17. Chelsea's is 7.
Yeah,
so it's like another point.
I mean, not going to touch on Leicester too much today, of course, but the interesting was they won the league with 81 points, was it? I think they'll get more than 81 points this season, but they won't win the league.
They've got more points at this stage of this season than they had of their title-winning season after 10 games. So
that says a lot. Well, a lot more football to go through. Just give you a quick update from the rugby. It's Wales 3, South Africa 6. 25 minutes gone in this one.
This is Love Sport.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
Aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through A Spokesman Said. No doubt about that.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Love Sport.
Love for Weekend Breakfast, me, Richard Lee. Paul Mortimer, joined by Mr. Will Beckman, going through the back pages. We talked about Captain America. Big day for Christian Pulisic yesterday with his hat-trick. Pep Guardiola was talking about Mr. Raheem Sterling, I believe.
Yeah, he likes him, would you believe?
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I like him too.
Raheem is like VAR. Every press conference we talk about him.
Good.
It's quite nice, isn't it?
Too right. By the way, I love Pep Guardiola on VAR. You can tell it really winds him up, doesn't it?
Raheem Sterling doesn't wind him up.
No.
City's first half performance yesterday winds him up. If we play like we did in the first half, we will be in a relegation position. That's classic Pep Guardiola, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just, we're relegation contenders. No, he was actually very happy. He said that what I like about Sterling was most that after scoring 3 goals, making assists and everything, the next game you're usually a bit like, how good am I? But he was the opposite. He played like it was the last 15 minutes of his life. And that's been our strength as a team in the years together. I am so proud of him. I think Dean Smith said that he is pretty much unplayable at the minute. He makes great runs in behind it, can check at full pelt and causes problems. But game of 2 halves for City. They won 3-0. And they were 8 points clear, 8 points adrift 8 days ago. Now it's 3 points. So
there you go. Liverpool obviously
reports of the title race's demise were perhaps exaggerated.
Slightly exaggerated. Although, of course, Liverpool do have their game in hand, don't they?
But
it's a tough one, though.
It's a difficult one with, Spurs won 5-0 midweek. They've got a little bit of pressure coming from behind them. It's not a simple one. I still expect them to win it. But
I'm not sure. I think Spurs need to need to put in a statement performance because
They do.
all of the jury's out on Spurs and everything about them at the moment. A statement performance today will resurrect a little bit of that.
Do you know who the jury's out on in particular?
Go on.
Dele Alli.
You're moving on nicely. I see.
Yeah.
Just before you do move on to Mr. Dele,
Just hold me back from it. Go on
I'm
then.
just going to let's just put a
Put the
pin in
brakes
that.
on.
Put a pin in. What's some of the classic business sayings? We'll put a pin in that. We'll.
I've got no
You not
clue.
got no business
No,
lingo.
no, I don't like all them
Like
things.
singing from the same hymn sheet. No,
You've got loads of them. I know you have. You've got loads.
I'll
of
pull
them.
out a few more.
Yeah,
but
you will.
We're certainly singing from the same hymn sheet here. No, I was just going to touch on Liverpool's fixtures because they've obviously got Man City coming up on the 10th of November, but they have got, of course, Tottenham. You mentioned they're away at Villa, of course, City at home. So it could be interesting going into that game if they can.
How far are they going to be ahead going into that game?
Because if it then goes badly today, Villa away is not going to be easy for obvious reasons. Never easy going there. It could be that they're facing City win that, and we're back to all square again. It could be that. Or, of course, they play City, maintain this lead. No reason it's not 9-10 points again, and suddenly they are firm favourites. So it's going to be a really interesting, because that's again the last game before the international break as well, which I quite like that because
we've got 2 weeks to digest and discuss, and criticise,
like we love to
and
do.
Scrutinise.
It's quite nice to be on the other side now because it used to be I used to be receiving the criticism, so now I'm just going to give loads.
You've come over to the dark side.
Over to the dark side. Sorry, I did cut you off because you were going to talk about Mr. Dele Alli.
Yes, football's voice of authority, as the Sunday Times call him, Graham Souness. He's having a go at Dele Alli this morning. He said, 2 years ago I thought he was going to be a superstar. Instead, he's stagnated. And Graham Souness is essentially asking why. He says he has to look at himself in the mirror in the morning when he's shaving and ask, why have I not progressed? He needs to ask why Harry Kane has kicked on and handled all the peripheral stuff that comes with being a top player, and he hasn't. Can he honestly say he's been fully focused on his football, or has he forgotten what made him kick a ball in the first place? Football should still be the priority. Why would you allow your eye to be taken off the ball? When you were a little boy, you loved doing it. So get back to the basics of being in love with the game again. So Dele Alli treading water, apparently, and we'll see. Maybe he'll have a response this afternoon.
Interestingly, there's also a story today, and there's similarities between the two. So Jesse Lingard, there's a story about how his clothing line, J Lings, lost just over £200,000 in its first year in business. And obviously, a lot of talk in regards to Jesse Lingard in the same light that maybe he's taken his eye off football and there is more focus on things going elsewhere. In fairness, I can talk a little bit from personal experience on this, that I do think Graham Souness has a point here in that he's gone to a lot of detail, while you're shaving in the mirror, but I think more so there is something about while you're playing, and this is the advice I give young players now based on personal experience because I didn't necessarily do this, is that while you're playing, the biggest investment you can make is into your career. And what I mean by that is what can you do to make yourself the best footballer you can be? Because actually, there's no small business in the world that will help you earn as much money as you can earn from football. Dele Alli at the moment, the amount of money he's earning, if he focuses fully on football for the next 8-10 years, he will have more money than by building a clothing brand. 100%. And that's, again, speaking, I went into business too early, and I look back, and the one thing I'd have changed, I was on Dragon's Den at the age of 23. I would have done that or applied for that when I was 30, 35, not when I was 23, because it does take your eye off the ball slightly, excuse the pun, but it does take your eye off the ball slightly because, of course, you do have something else to consider.
So I understand what you're saying, and you've lived it, so your experiences are definitely pertinent and they matter. I think too much time is spent telling people that football is the only thing, and it isn't the only thing. And I think that having the life away from football can actually improve your football. Now, if you look at Dele Alli, one of the things that links Dele Alli and Jesse Lingard is a horrible spate of injuries. Jesse Lingard has had Dele Alli has had hamstring injuries. Knowing them myself, the freedom of movement in your body is restricted, so you can't do the things. Also, you don't trust your body. He's broken down 4 or 5 times in a year, so you are never going to be physically what you want to be, and that's coincided with Spurs' lack of investment. They've looked an average side now. His success was such that big things, the expectation had risen far, I think, beyond where it should have been with him. Has he not performed so far? Yeah, he's not what he was. There's no disputing that. Is it down to the fact that he's got clothing lines and stuff like that? Well, some of that will play a part, but you're also a top-class international footballer. You've got there because, you know, the fitness and that, put that to one side in terms of the work you put in, because it's scientific now.
Yeah.
It's about the sparkle.
What I'd say, no, it's a fair point. And interestingly, actually, I look back again from personal experience, I went even more into business when I got my injuries. And the reason were, and this is where I can relate, because I had the same sort of thing. I was out for over 3 years in total in my career with injuries. So when you're injured, where does your mind go? Well, it either goes on, you almost need a distraction.
Yeah,
so and also there was a thought, do you know what, I might not come back, so I need to build something alongside it, because I don't want my lifestyle to take a hit if I suddenly have to quit football tomorrow. But then it's that catch-22. And I guess that's look, you do make a really fair point with the injuries, but I guess that's the point, is that if it just depends where the focus is. If it is something whereby he's got lots of people running his external ventures and he's just touching base, it's just a bit of fun, and actually 100% is on football, then absolutely fine. Again, I know from personal experience, I ended up being the type of player that I would get into training an hour early, so I could spend an hour on my phone catching up on emails, and then I'd spend 3 hours in the afternoon, posting gloves out here, there and everywhere for one of my goalkeeping business. And what ends up happening is suddenly that could have been time that I could have been spending doing yoga or in the gym or watching football, studying football. And that's where, if that's the case for Jesse Lingard, if that's the case for Dele Alli, then what it will mean is their next contract might be 20% lower than what it could have been.
See, I can't see that, because if you look at where we are now, had you been doing that now, Rich, your mindset would be completely different, because you'd have people in place who'd be able to...
Yep.
In fact, what you've just said, without a doubt, I'm virtually sure Lingard and Ali have had said to them, the biggest, most important thing is you. Is getting you right and getting you on the pitch right. I truly believe at this moment you'd have people around you looking after that, so that all you had to focus on, number one, was everything you had to focus on in terms of football was there. Now in your spare time you could do this, knowing full well that I've taken care of everything I needed to take care of there. I can't believe that's not the case for Lingard, and I just can't see it that way. And I think what's happened to them, what links them is injuries. Also, look at the teams they're playing for, the decline in the team's fortunes, the way the team's players impacted on the way that they are, and maybe they need a fresh impetus from someone.
Do you know the other one as well is that I will throw into the mix is the fact that, look, UK media, English media, we love to build someone up to knock them down. I mean, that's it as well. It's like how many players, they make their debut, they get man of the match. First 10 games, they're incredible. Then all of a sudden, it just shifts. And nothing's necessarily shifted in their performance, but it's just the way in which it goes. It goes in waves.
I think Graham Souness's opinions are somewhat dated, because I don't think this kind of stuff was around in his day. So, and Roy Keane's the same. They're doing something. They're international top-class footballers. Lionel Messi, Ronaldo, do you think they don't do stuff? Beckham was the one who started it. So come on. A poor performance is sometimes a poor performance. A poor spell is sometimes a poor spell.
I'll tell you what it is as well and this is, look, we're all guilty of this, is of course, when things are going well. In fact, I had a great example again personally, was Craig Bellamy at Blackburn. And like Craig Bellamy, by the way, there's been another score in the rugby. It's now Wales 3, South Africa 9. So a little bit of a lead. There's still a very, very tight game as we approach half-time. Craig Bellamy was a great example at Blackburn. So things were going brilliantly. We finished 6th, I think, that season. Mark Hughes manager, Robbie Savage, obviously Brad Friedel. It was that squad, brilliant squad. Now, let's say he wasn't whiter than white, Craig Bellamy. There would often be where he wouldn't turn up for training. Once, I always remember, we're training, a helicopter lands next to the training field, and it's Craig Bellamy, who was just like an hour late for training, lands in his helicopter. And, so he wasn't whiter than white, but the point was that he was doing so well on the field that he gets away with it. The moment it doesn't go so well, then all of a sudden all these other things get brought up. All of a sudden, if you've got a clothing line, that gets brought up. And that's part of it as well. I guess you give an excuse for the likes of a Graham Souness, the likes of your manager maybe, or the fans to try and find something, a reason for why it's not going as well as it once was, perhaps.
You have to remember also with Dele Alli, he may have plateaued because that may be his level.
Yeah.
I think that's something we always forget. He was an overnight sensation.
Yeah.
Now, he may have plateaued because that type of player, we've seen better than.
Yeah.
So it may well be that. I don't know.
Fair point. We've got loads more football to touch on, and as per usual, I've left several stories for the last...
We're doing some quick hits, I think.
We're going to be doing quick fire questions to Will Beckman after this.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire. Oh, what a goal! Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club. Absolutely brilliant. Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
This is Love Sport.
That's what we can breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer, with Mr. Will Beckman, going through the back pages. Just to give you the latest in the rugby as well. 3, South Africa 9. About 3 minutes until half time in this one. Plenty more football to talk about. Unai Emery hints that the Arsenal board have backed his decision to bench misfiring Mesut Ozil.
Yes, this is on the back page of The Sun. Unai got Ozil nod. Story by Rob Moore on the back of The Sun on Sunday. Apparently, well, he doesn't say this explicitly, but he's asked yesterday, before Arsenal's match against Crystal Palace today, why Mesut Ozil is not being played so much at the moment. And he said the most important thing is the club, the team, and finding a performance. And this is the bit that has been caught by the papers. Here, we have one agreed strategy as a club and as a team. Previously, we were all speaking between us to take that decision. I know all the supporters want to know something, but now is not the moment to speak about him. In the next matches, we are going to decide. And when we can speak about him something differently, we will look.
So what he's saying is mum and dad have said I can do it.
So
is that what you're doing?
Can I drop Ozil? Yeah. Cool, I'll do it then. I think that's
Mum, can I drop him? Dad, can I drop him? Yeah, go on, son. You do what you want. It's ridiculous.
I mean, it sounds as if he has consulted Rahul Sanlehi and Edu, the head of football and technical director. That's what he's implying.
Can I ask why? Because if I'm the manager of the side, I am paid to put a team that I think is good enough on the pitch. If I don't think Mesut Ozil fits in, why should I have to say, well, good, look, they said I could do it?
You shouldn't, I guess, because he's in theory an asset, and you might be devaluating him. I mean, that's not something that Emery necessarily needs to think about, but that's probably why it is. He's on $350,000 a week, apparently, according to this story in the Sun.
The thing about it is, for the last couple of years, we've known that. It's not a new thing, and if he's not putting in the performances, because for Unai Emery, that's all that's going to matter. Is he? Because I actually think, whatever you think of Ozil, he should be on the bench. He should be one where you look back on the bench and you think, we need creativity. Yep, I'll give him 20 minutes.
That might be the best way to get out of him. Yeah.
Very strange.
Interesting.
Shall we?
I want to talk a bit of Everton.
Yes,
if that's okay with you.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
Marco Silva, of course, is under immense pressure at the moment. They did lose to Brighton. I know he wasn't happy in regards to the penalty, which I'm guessing is going to be part of...
Yeah, I mean, it was the first VAR penalty, as it were, that was given following a review and not taken away. So, interesting decision there. He wasn't happy with that decision. He said, if you have penalties like that, you'll have 20 a week. I think it was a penalty for, to be honest. There was contact between feet. Is there a score that you're about to give me?
There is a score, sorry.
Yes.
This is why the slight loss of concentration there, I do apologise. But Wales 6, South Africa 9 now. So we've got about a minute until half-time. I'm pretty sure that North is going to be coming off, though. It looked like he pulled his hamstring.
It did.
It looked really nasty.
Oh, it looks horrible.
Coming off gingerly, yeah.
He is coming off gingerly, which is bad news, of course,
Yeah,
for
6-9.
Wales.
Okay.
But it is going to be very tight going into half-time, it looks like. But yeah, he was. It was a penalty.
Yeah.
I mean, look, by the way, there's a couple of things I want to touch on this game, and it's not often I give goalkeepers criticism because I am very much part of
England goalkeeper as well.
I know.
What are you doing?
I was frustrated with it. Look, don't get me wrong. He's hit it very hard, and it has moved a little bit. But
Jordan Pickford. This is obviously
Jordan Pickford. There's just a little bit too much arm movement for me with Jordan Pickford. He's got a slightly different style to most goalkeepers, and I think yesterday we saw the negative to his style, where he does really swing his arms beforehand. And actually, that shot there, it looks very dramatic the way he goes down. But the shot isn't that far from him. I think that most goalkeepers save that, and I think he would have been very disappointed with that.
Soaked through and staring into space, Marco Silva looked a broken man by the end. The great unknown is whether he will get enough time to piece himself and his team back together again. That's Riyad Al Samarai's report from the Amex Stadium in the Mail on Sunday. Everton, of course, 2 points above the relegation zone with 10 points from 10 games. Not exactly what was called for this season from
know what
them.
normally happens?
Another sloppy defeat with a very comical last-minute own goal.
It's a weird thing because normally in the past of me growing up, everyone used to say, if you finish just behind Man United, you're going to win the title. Man United are 15th on 10 points, Everton are 16th on 10 points. I mean, Everton I worry for because I don't know what they are. And just when you think they're going to win and they win well, then they lose against average sides who they shouldn't be losing against. I think he'd be gone by Christmas. I really do.
It'd be interesting if he makes the next international break. Just to make a note, by the way, it's half-time. Wales 6, South Africa 9. Certainly all to play for in the second half. This next international break, this is like the last time, but you feel when managers get sacked, it tends to be the international breaks. And ordinarily, it certainly feels like the majority, it will be the last of these three. So this is where, like, you see it's still early enough whereby someone could come in, they'll have a January window, and there's enough time to turn things around. I don't know what needs to happen between now and then, but I think he's in serious danger. Yeah.
Playing his former club in midweek in the Carabao Cup, of course. That could be a bit of sweet justice if Watford were to beat him, and Richard Lee's smiling incredibly slyly there.
No.
Spurs next weekend in the league. Southampton, Norwich, Leicester, Liverpool, Chelsea, United. Oh, goodness me, Arsenal.
Tough fixture. They'll be in the relegation zone. And
goodness me, yeah. This is...
Well, this is where, for instance, I made the point about I said that I think Newcastle have had a phenomenal start to the season. They're in the relegation zone, but the reason I said that was they played all the big boys. Everton haven't. This Everton is a dreadful start to the season.
These games they've been tripping up in with Silva all the time. They're just unnecessary defeats against teams you should be beating.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's under so much pressure, because you don't see you don't see the path that's being followed. No. It's just sort of treading water at the moment. If indeed that, probably going backwards, putting water might be a little bit generous.
Do you know what, with football clubs, it's like, this is where it is like any other business, is that you can see with certain football clubs what they're building, what they're putting in place. The infrastructure. I always come back to Brentford because I know it so well, and it was a club I was at, where you actually see the idea behind everything they do, the recruitment model, the way in which they are progressing gradually. They've got the new stadium, and you feel that they're far from their peak at the moment. Whereas you look at an Everton, there's a few other clubs that are in this, but Newcastle are to an extent, in fact to a large extent, where it just feels like they're treading water. There's no real plan in place. It's just a case of get by day to day, make sure we stay in the league, and we keep on going. But at some point that doesn't work anymore.
Well, I mean, at some point you have to have an identity. You have to have a direction. You have to have a way you want to do things. And, I go back to Wimbledon and Watford under Graham Taylor, where they were successful because they had an idea that everyone believed in. They bought into the way. Whatever you thought of it, this is the way we're going to play. This is the type of players we're going to have. You look at Everton, and like I said, some clubs are reflected. Their manager reflects them. I don't know what he is, Marco Silva. I genuinely have no clue what Everton's identity is. I've got no clue.
We've got some criticism from listeners.
Go on.
Yeah. Do you know who's criticised you specifically?
Go on.
My aunt.
Oh no!
I got a text message from her. She says she grew very fond of Jordan Pickford in the World Cup last summer. Criticising Jordan, not sure I can take it.
Oh no! Oh, do you know what? Now I feel bad. There's me. It hurts me to criticise a goalkeeper,
wasn't he? Yeah.
Well, he was, and this is where I go back to it. The Goalkeepers Union. I think 99.9% of the times I'm backing goalkeepers. Yeah. That one really bugged me yesterday because
What's your aunt's name?
Nicola.
Why are you trying to...
Auntie Nicola, I've got to say one thing. I'm so sorry. I'm with Richard, because Jordan Pickford made a mistake and he's been making just one or two too many. I'm sorry. Don't take it. Please don't take it out on Will the next time you see him.
We've just lost a listener.
But he
We've
believes it
lost a
too.
listener.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, you haven't.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to
Watford.
From goalkeepers to one of my former clubs. Yeah, Watford. Kike Sanchez-Flores bemoans nervous strikers as Watford draw a blank against Bournemouth.
Kike it in the net.
Nice, see what they've done there. Yeah, it's not bad.
This is the goals pull out in the Sun on Sunday. He's slammed his nervous strikers as Watford's agonising wait for a first league win continues. They're the only team in professional football in England not to have broken their duck in league competitions. And this has equalled their longest winless start to a campaign. Only scored 5 league goals. And he said, I can feel when we're in the opposition box that the players are nervous and take bad decisions. We had our chances, did not concede and had a good team spirit, but the players aren't feeling completely relaxed. The front two are not completely strikers, but they have different qualities. What do you reckon? Is that a bit too simplistic a way?
No, they can't score. They haven't got... And this is where... I know that Troy Deeney's obviously had his injuries. Andre Gray, never really been taken to by the Watford faithful. They need a number 9, and it's, for me, it is as simple as that.
Someone who can score, and they don't have to run about. They don't have to be, I think the problem that we have with modern football is so much time is spent on statistics, at how far they can run and how much energy they have and how much ground they cover. Sometimes you just need that goal getter. That's why, you spoke about Eddie Nketiah not playing at Leeds. I think it's because he's a penalty box poacher, and Leeds want someone who can run about a bit more. Now, if you want someone who's going to do all the running the channels, you take away from their ability to just be in the box and be ready for a chance that comes along. And come January, I think that there's going to be some championship centre forwards who I think Watford will be looking at. I really do.
Yeah. Should we squeeze some F1 onto the back of this hour?
Go on, you got 30 seconds.
30 seconds? Okay. So obviously we've got the Grand Prix Mexico, which we spoke about in the last hour, but there's some big news that's going to come out this week. On Thursday, 2021's regulations will be brought out. This has been, apparently, according to Rebecca Clancy in the Sunday Times, these have been delayed and put back more than Brexit has been. But the story that she's reporting is that essentially the teams are not happy with these rules and they want them to be delayed again to 2022 because at the moment the only real change is a cost cap of $175 million. Christian Horner, the Red Bull boss, leading the criticism. He said the rules are underdeveloped and immature. But we will find out more later this week.
There you go. Good work. As always, Mr. Will Beckman. Just to let you know, it's half-time in the rugby. Wales 6, South Africa 9. We'll be talking about that after this.
Love sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Stop paying too much for your energy bills. Brian saved money on his at spokesmansaid.com. Can you?
I'm Brian from Swaddling Coat, South Derbyshire, and I saved about £400 on my energy bill with a Spokesman Said. The iSpokesman Said website was very easy to use, and the money I saved I put towards a holiday.
Compare home energy quotes from the UK's biggest suppliers in just a matter of minutes with spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids, so make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
Last for Weekend Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer. We are here with you all the way until midday. In fact, we're just touching there, Morts, just very quickly on Watford. That is now 3 unbeaten, has to be said. They've, of course, drawn... But this is exactly the problem. Look, 0-0 with AFC Bournemouth, of course, 1-1 away at Spurs, 0-0 at home to Sheffield United. Defensively, they seem to have got it right, or they're certainly a lot better. It is simply scoring goals.
It's the most important thing, like I say. They're beginning to get a solid foundation. Hopefully that will give them confidence to take chances and risks in front of goal.
Indeed. Big hour coming up. We're going to be speaking to Mark Flanagan about United Liverpool. We'll also speak to Brian Statham.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 10. The former Chancellor has urged the government to stop throwing tantrums over its Brexit agenda. Philip Hammond, who lost the Conservative whip last month, says he'll vote against Boris Johnson's plans for an early election in December. He claims now is not the time for the country to return to the ballot box.
It's a time for cool heads and grown-up government. The government should stop making threats, stop throwing tantrums and get on with the grown-up business of doing its business. Just because it can't get exactly what it wants doesn't mean that it should stop working.
Mr Hammond has also said he intends to stand as an independent at the next election. Meanwhile, Labour's Shadow Health Secretaries described a joint plan by the Lib Dems and SNP for a general election before Christmas as an opportunistic stunt. President Trump is due to make a major statement later after unconfirmed reports the Islamic State's leader has been killed in a US military operation. There's speculation Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi died in a raid in Syria, but previous such claims have proved wrong. Police are still questioning 3 suspects over the deaths of 39 people in a lorry container in Essex. One man charged with manslaughter and other offences is due in court tomorrow. Relatives of a missing British backpacker are joining the search for her in Cambodia. Amelia Bambridge, who's 21 and from West Sussex, was last seen on the island of Koh Rong on Wednesday. Our reporter Ashley Blake says several of her personal belongings have been recovered.
So far, her handbag containing her purse, her mobile phone and bank cards were found on the beach where the party was, but as yet there's no trace of her. And for her to go missing in this way is completely out of character. She's an extremely well-organised young lady, according to her family.
In sport, Wales are trailing South Africa at half-time by 9 points to 6 in their Rugby Union World Cup semi-final in Japan. The winner faces England next Saturday. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snuggs.
This is Love Sport.
From the case files of Miss Maureen 118212, the case of the replacement rodent.
A woman called asking for the number of a pet shop. She needed a new hamster before her son returned from school. I didn't ask what happened to the original hamster. Best not to know some things.
Maureen 118212. For directory inquiries, call Maureen on 118212. Calls cost $2.50 per call plus 75p a minute with a minimum 1 minute charge plus your phone company's access charge.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport.
Morning, Love Sport Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee and Paul Mortimer here with you until midday. Let's touch on the top stories this morning. England's rugby union players dominate the back pages after making the World Cup final with their convincing win over New Zealand. In football, the Mirror reports former Manchester United chief executive Peter Kenyon is looking to broker a deal for a US investment group to buy Newcastle, while the Sun says it looks as if the Arsenal board have backed Unai Emery's decision to have Mesut Ozil on the fringes of his squad. And the Mail on Sunday says a newly appointed medical expert to the Football Association has recommended the end of heading in children's football. Today in rugby, Wales are in action against South Africa in the Rugby Union World Cup semi-final in Yokohama. They've lost their only 2 previous games at this stage. The winner, of course, takes on England in the final. The score at half-time is 9-6 to South Africa. And in the boxing, Derek Chisora secured a stoppage win over David Price in their all-British heavyweight boxing match in London. Scotland's Josh Taylor earns a point victory over Regis Prograis to win the WBA and IBF Super Lightweight World titles. And in football, Chelsea boss Frank Lampard says he's been right to take things slowly with big money signing Christian Pulisic. The American scored a hat-trick in their 4-2 win at Burnley in his first league start since August. Lampard says the midfielder just needed some time.
He signed on a big transfer
went and spent a lot of the summer playing for his country in competition, had 1 week off, and everyone's expecting, well, you know, he's going to hit the ground running. I have a duty of care to look after him and try and get the best out of him.
This is Love Sport Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer here with you until midday. Teams are just coming out. Of course, Wales are taking on South Africa for the chance to meet England in the World Cup final next Saturday. Of course, 7 a.m. next Saturday. Everybody will be tuned in for that one, no doubt. Just touching on this game, Mr. Mortimer. Of course, Wales 9-6 down at half-time. Very tight encounter, quite a few mistakes. No one really... You kind of feel whoever does score the first try, if there is to be one, is going to be crucial in this game.
Yeah, it's nip and tuck at the moment. And it's two very competitive teams, fairly evenly balanced teams as well. You wouldn't say either team really had the upper hand. I mean, yes, South Africa are ahead, but you wouldn't say either team had the upper hand genuinely. And it could be a moment of brilliance, a mistake, or the video referee that could, you know, ultimately decide the game. I'm hoping that it comes organically from the game rather than the technology that decides it.
Yeah, indeed. We'll keep you up to date on this game, of course. I want to talk a bit of Premier League. We have touched on City's win yesterday, Chelsea's win yesterday. There were 3 other games. We touched briefly on Watford in the papers in the last hour, and I mentioned the fact that it's now 3 unbeaten, 3 draws. Defensively, they do seem a lot more secure. Of course, a good draw away at Spurs, draw with Sheffield United, and now with Bournemouth. But the big problem, obvious problem, is scoring goals. It seems like they're creating chances as well. From the game yesterday, the highlights that I saw, Aaron Ramsdale has made a couple of good saves in the Bournemouth goal. Therefore, of course, Ben Foster had to make a couple as well his end. So it wasn't necessarily all Watford.
No.
But you don't feel like they're that far away from being the team that we saw last season.
It's weird because, you know, at the start of the season, I put Watford in with your West Hams and your Bournemouths and your Leicesters competing for, you know, between 4th and 10th. I thought Watford were going to be there or thereabouts. And it was a genuine surprise to me to see the way they started. I mean, I know they had a hangover from the FA Cup, but it was really disappointing. I don't know what's gone wrong there because they're good players.
They didn't do a great deal in the window, which was interesting. I wonder whether there was a feeling that because they were very good last season, although it was pretty much after the semi-final from memory, maybe even the quarters, but certainly the semi after the Wolves game. Fantastic game, of course, but they really took their foot off the gas massively, and they don't seem to have really got themselves going again since. You know, this run without winning now goes back a long, long way. So, I mean, whether they were just a bit... say lazy in the not lazy because it's not the word, but maybe just sort of rested on their laurels a little bit, thinking actually we were that good last season that we'll still finish mid-table even with very little recruitment in the summer.
Well, I can't dispute that because I actually think if you look at them, and most teams, in my opinion, the important thing in the summer is to refresh, is to bring in competition for certain players and in certain positions. I mean, if you look at Watford up front, Troy Deeney is a huge miss because it's not that he scores goals, but his link play creates a lot of other opportunities for others. Andre Gray, I feel for it, hasn't really hit. I mean, Deulofeu, you know, players like that who are incredibly creative. Pereira, you know, you're not hearing enough about those players being able to really make a difference. Decore. You know, last season when they were playing well, these were the names on people's lips. You know, Decore was looking at moving elsewhere. That's how good he was. So, whereas a lot of the players were 8 out of 10, 6 to 8 out of 10, and 7.5 to 8 out of 10 last season, they're all 6 out of 10 at the moment.
Yeah.
So as a unit, they're defending well now, but they're not doing as well going forward as you would expect.
Absolutely. Just to touch on another game, of course, Brighton and Everton, and we've spoke about Marco Silva. I want to talk about this a little bit further. Brighton now find themselves in 12th, so Graham Potter, a reasonably solid start. I'm sure people will be pleased with that. I mean, they were obviously kind of what they did last season. I know last season they sunk a bit, and then in the end they only just escaped relegation, but they look like they're playing some good stuff. This is a big victory for them. I want to focus a bit more on Everton, though, and I touched on this. The bit that is worrying for me is you look at the teams they've played, and I'll run through them very quickly. So Crystal Palace, Watford, Aston Villa. Obviously, Man City being the toughest one so far by a long way. Sheffield United, AFC Bournemouth, Wolves. Then you look at the results they've had in October. Brighton, West Ham, Burnley. We're not talking top 6 clubs. There's only Man City they've played in the top 6, and they currently find themselves where they find themselves in the league. This is really worrying for Everton. They are just 2 points off the relegation zone. Their list of fixtures coming up are some really tough fixtures. there's every chance they're going to be in the relegation zone come the next international break.
See, they can't afford to be because they don't have players. Because you have to play a certain way to get out of there. They've done it before, been around it. They don't have those type of players. They don't. They have, sort of ninth upwards type of players. They don't have the players that are going to roll their sleeves up, put the ball in the channel and battle and fight. They just don't have them type of players. So I worry for them because, like you said, some of the teams they're playing are not the top teams.
No.
They're playing teams really ordinarily they should have been beaten. Now, the problem you have with that is now if you're Newcastle or Wolves or Burnley or even Southampton, Norwich and Watford and you come up against Everton, you have a chance of getting something there. You do because they give you chances.
Yeah, no, they do indeed. Will he last? It looks unlikely he's going to last season. What needs to happen, though, for him to keep his job? Because it's results like this yesterday where Brighton, he will have looked at that, and I'm sure he'll have gone home last night. Look, he was disappointed with the penalty decision.
Yeah.
We've seen it again. It is a penalty.
Yeah, it's a penalty.
Rightly or wrongly. Look,
Yeah.
it's innocuous, but it is a penalty. He's obviously frustrated because I think he looks at that and realises that he's in serious... He was in serious trouble anyway, but now that game's gone. That was a game that they could have won. Right. Never an easy place to go, of course, but a game they could have won. Now he's looking at those fixtures. For me, surely it's just a matter of if, not when.
Well, I look at it...
When, not if. I got that completely wrong.
But I know what you meant. I look at it, Rich, and you're talking about him on his way home. I'm thinking about the directors and the owners. Yeah. On their way home, I don't care what anyone says, they're starting to just feel uneasy. They really are, because they're starting to question whether this is the guy, because we've given him a lot of money. He's, to a certain degree, this is his side now.
Yeah.
And it's worse than
what it was before.
Than it was before. So, and they've got, what they got? They're home to Spurs next after this.
Yeah.
So, they find themselves in deep trouble because, like you say, all things go against them next week. They could find themselves in the bottom three, which is not after £150 million spent. But what you find with them that's happening week in, week out is they're conceding goals through individual errors. It's not like they're being carved open. They've can't defend a set piece for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Then you've got if you look at the collection of errors that Pickford's made over the season, I think for a goalkeeper of his standard, I don't think he should be making those errors. If that's to be truthfully honest,
I think it's a bit funny with Jordan Pickford at the moment. I felt like he's been a bit hit and miss for a while.
Yeah.
The thing is, he's technically different to a lot of other goalkeepers. The thing that he has, and where he's so brilliant for England, is that he is by far and away certainly out of English goalkeepers, he's the best with his feet. Distribution's brilliant. Yeah. It's a massive part of how Gareth Southgate plays. I don't think it's as important to Everton, and actually, you could argue that Everton perhaps need a goalkeeper that is slightly better as a shot stopper.
As a goalkeeper.
Well, this is it. But do you know what? It sounds crazy. Like, I would say, for instance, that Jordan Pickford would do better in a Man City team because of the way he plays.
Yeah, that's right.
So that would be a better fit than him in the Everton team, because I think it's like where David De Gea. I think David De Gea is a great fit for Man United because he's got so much to do and he's so athletic and agile, whereas I think Jordan Pickford would struggle in a Man United team. Jordan Pickford's perfect for the England team. He's the best goalkeeper for England right now because of the way that England play.
Yeah, exactly right.
And it's people don't fully appreciate this, that there are certain goalkeepers for certain teams. In the same way that a Sanchez can go to Man United and struggle because he doesn't fit into the environment,
right.
It's exactly the same for a lot of goalkeepers. I want to touch as well on West Ham. Of course, they drew with Sheffield United. In fact, an interesting one for you in regards to West Ham, because they do have a different goalkeeper playing. They've got Roberto playing
That's
a goal.
right. Yeah.
He's yet to have a win, as far as I'm aware. So their results haven't been brilliant. Since they beat United, they've been pretty poor, actually. Obviously, losing to Oxford in the League Cup, drawing with Bournemouth, losing to Palace at home, losing to Everton, drawing with Sheffield United. So although they sit in a reasonably good position in the table, I just feel that that's another one where, look, they look fine at the moment. They're 9th at the moment? I think they are. They've picked up, 13 points, 10 games. But actually, they're on a pretty poor run right now.
I look at West Ham and there's a lack of genuine real belief that they could be a top 6 side. Because if you look at those games you've just spoken about, West Ham are doing what they normally do. Really, they should have been winning most of them.
Yeah,
they should have been winning most of them. But I just think they're a soft touch at the moment, and they should, because the collection of players they've got is very good. They've got a very good squad, but getting it to perform consistently, and they've had a few injuries. To be truthfully honest, but they're so inconsistent.
Yeah, no, they really are. And that'll be the kind of game yesterday. And again, look, Sheffield United certainly aren't a pushover, and I think they're going to be more than fine this season. But if you are at home to Sheffield United and you're West Ham, it's the kind of game, again, you have to win because, yes, you picked up a point, but these are the type of games, the promoted clubs, no disrespect to them, but teams like a West Ham need to be beating the promoted clubs at home.
Well, number one, it's your home games.
Yeah.
Number two, you're playing against a team that's just been promoted. I don't care if they're top of the table. They've just been promoted. Okay? You will have better players. I don't care what anyone says. You will, man for man, have better players.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be happening. You should have enough to but it was, they did miss a lot of chances, by the way.
Yeah.
I saw it this morning. They missed so many chances. So there's something about West Ham that is blocking them from really being as successful as the quality of players should make them.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to be talking to Mark Flanagan, Love Sports Northwest correspondent, shortly, talking a bit about Manchester United and, of course, Liverpool, who take on Tottenham. And there is the rugby going on at the moment, and we have good news for Wales. It's now Wales 9, South Africa 9. So it's all set for a grandstand finish in this one. There's, 47 minutes played. So it's a fascinating game.
I'm enjoying it. And it's not taking away my concentration, but it is a really, it's one of those that I think is going to be nip and tuck, and dependent on whether fatigue sets in. I think we were talking to a rugby journalist earlier who was saying that Wales have so many issues around the fitness of their players that could play a part. But at the moment, I don't see that. It's two really competitive sides really going head to head.
Yeah, indeed. We'll keep you informed every step of the way. We'll be talking to Mark Flanagan next.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire. Oh, what a goal! Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club. Absolutely brilliant! Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
Can you save money on your car insurance? Chris did with a little help from a spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings.
I'm Chris from Leicestershire, a truck driver. I went on a spokesman set, which was very straightforward and easy to use for an old git like myself, and saved over £300 on my car insurance.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Find out what you need to do to prepare at gov.uk/Brexit.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
This is Love Sport.
That's Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer here with you until midday. Of course, there's a couple of big games going on today in the Premier League. Norwich City, Man United and Liverpool, Tottenham. Of course, delighted to say we've got Mark Flanagan, Love Sport Northwest correspondent, to go through those games with us. Morning, Mark.
Morning, Richard.
Morning. Let's start with Liverpool. Interesting game this, and it should, you would think, be a tight game, although obviously not going brilliantly for Spurs in the league at the moment. Liverpool, on the other hand, if they were to win, they'll equal the Premier League record of 28 points after the opening 10 fixtures. How do you see this one playing out?
Very hard to call, isn't it? You don't know which Tottenham's going to turn up at the moment, although they have got a really bad record against Liverpool. I think they've only won one of the last 15 games. It's a fixture they historically don't look forward to, and if they defend like they did against Brighton away from home, they're really struggling. Then they can be in for a long afternoon. Liverpool have got sort of their big guns all ready and lined up. I think even Trent Alexander-Arnold's likely to come back. So that Tottenham defence, which has been iffy at best all season. He's going to be really sorely tested, and you do worry that if Tottenham concede early, it could really get the crowd going, and you suspect there might be a few goals because Tottenham will have to go for it as well, and we know that Liverpool's defence hasn't been at its best this season, particularly when teams really have a go at them.
And do you think, Mark, that Spurs will have learnt a little bit from Manchester United recently, who I know it was an away game for Liverpool, but who found a way to make things difficult for Liverpool? Do you think Poch will have learnt a little bit? I mean, get into Liverpool's faces, deny them space, which is a little bit what Man United did, and attack them. Do you think they've got enough to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, how you've sort of outlined what United did, and surely that's what all good teams would do against, any top opposition. If you sit back against Liverpool, they're going to tear you apart. So you've got to be bold and get in their faces. And you just only have to look as well, not only what United did, but what Salzburg did. I mean, I know they were out of the game essentially, but when they had a real go at Liverpool, they struggled to cope with them. And you've got to say Tottenham up front have got players who can hurt any team in the world when they're on it. Kane and Son and Lamela and all these guys who can, if they turn up, they'll cause Liverpool a lot of problems. So I do expect there to be, I think it'll be pretty sort of end-to-end, to be honest. I think the way that Tottenham kind of succumbed in the Champions League final, I think a lot of those players will be hurting and they'll want to prove a point. And obviously what's happened against Bayern and Brighton as well, they should really want to kind of really turn it on and give Liverpool a tough afternoon.
Yeah, just touched on Liverpool. It sounds like Trent Alexander-Arnold is back after illness, and fellow fullback Andy Robertson recovered from a knock that he sustained. So important that those two are available because they've got a big part to play in the way that Liverpool play.
Yeah, I think that was the really big lesson that United kind of taught the rest of the Premier League. I'm sure Pochettino knows if you stop Liverpool's fullbacks, you're stopping a lot of their attacking options, the way that Liverpool play and play that three in midfield who obviously snuff out a lot of spaces, and obviously the extra man invariably when Liverpool attack is their fullback, which obviously puts pressure on the defenders, but definitely you stop the fullback. But having said that, trying to stop them is one thing and actually doing it is another, because if you put too many players out wide against Liverpool, they've got players down the middle that will hurt you as well, and Firmino will just drop into all those spaces that are taken up if Tottenham commit too many players out wide, and he'll cause havoc as well. So that's the beauty of the Liverpool side. I just think against United, Liverpool were genuinely ruffled, and they were knocked off their stride in the first 20 minutes, and it took them a while to get back. So that may not happen again. That may not happen again this season. That just might have been a one-off, and with the United factor as well. And the critical thing for Liverpool is at home they are a different animal. You see what they can do. They see what they did against Barcelona. They are so good at home, and I think that's the big problem for Spurs.
I also think, I mean, if you look at Leicester in 20th, Spurs where they would normally be third, they're 8 points off it. And Spurs have been unconvincing, to be truthfully honest, this season. So sometimes they need a moment performance, and possibly because they need to win too. Could you see that happening today? That one where you think, yeah, this is the Spurs that we remember, because at the moment they're imposters. The Spurs that we remember is nowhere to be seen at the moment.
Well, if you look at the season as a whole, and the way that they lost to Newcastle, I mean, it was very early on, and the sort of problems that followed with Bayern and Brighton, that horrible spell that they've had recently. So it's not just a recent thing, the up and down nature of Tottenham's season, and the fact that where they are in the table, I think it's 1-3, drawn 3, lost 3, isn't it? I mean, that speaks volumes for how unpredictable they are. But like I said before, if Son and Kane and the other guys are on it, they will score and hurt Liverpool. It's just whether they can keep them out. That's obviously the big factor for Tottenham, and the fact that the way they crumbled against Bayern. You do worry in terms of what's going on in that squad, if it's a happy squad, because teams who tend to crumble like that, there tends to be something underlying it, and I think that's the big issue for Tottenham is whether that situation has been solved, and the kind of, it just seems very unsettled. Pochettino's future, he's not been shy about talking about what's going on with him. So I just that Tottenham squad, as talented as it is, there's obviously issues within it which we may or may not find out in the future. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that's the underlying issue, because they've got all the players and we know how good they can be and how consistent they've been over the last 5 years as well. It's not just last season. It's longer, and they should be coming to their peak with the young players that they've got, but something's obviously gone amiss this season.
Yeah, I want to ask you a little bit, obviously, about Manchester United. They're taking on Norwich. Before that, just to give an update, there has been a try in the rugby, and unfortunately it's gone the way of South Africa. It's now Wales 9, South Africa 14, with the conversion to come. Talking about Norwich City, talking about Man United, big game. United ordinarily, in fact, they've got a very good record at Norwich. They've won 6 of the 8 Premier League away games against Norwich, although United have now gone 8 top-flight away games without a win. Of course, they did win away in Europe in the week, which was the first one for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as permanent manager. How do you see this one? Obviously, Norwich have got their injury problems, but so have Manchester United. It's really tough to know what sides are going to line up. I mean, this for me is one that I'm really struggling to call.
Yeah, and interestingly, Solskjaer said that, in the press conference, that he thinks that Manchester United will have to be at their best to beat them, which is an interesting thing for a Manchester United manager to say against a team in the bottom 3, which kind of speaks volumes for where we're at with Manchester United. And like you say, Norwich, I don't think they had a fit centre-half until recently. One of the centre-halves came back for the game against Bournemouth, and I think he's expected to be fit. So that's one less headache for the Norwich manager. But yeah, it's both defences. Norwich's defence had its problems, and they will be obviously buoyed by that clean sheet against Bournemouth. And we know that attack-wise, they've got that option, and they've got plenty to sort of go at, really. It's just obviously a bit of a surprise that they seem to have fallen off a cliff after that fantastic win against City, and you'd have expected them to build on that, but it just hasn't happened. And what you've got really is 2 struggling teams who struggle to grind out wins. So, like you say, it's extremely difficult to call them. Whether Ollie sticks with the 3 at the back is obviously, it'll be interesting to see what he does against a team who you'd think on paper United should be able to assert themselves against, but like we've seen many times away from home, they've really struggled.
Well, there's a wonderful incentive for Norwich if you look at the table, because they'll go on level points with Manchester United, which is ridiculous. They'll come out of the bottom 3. So it's one, where I suppose a point doesn't really do anything for them. They've got an opportunity to really stick it to Man United, who are very, very inconsistent at the moment. And if you get after Man United, there's a soft centre as well. So I really don't believe this will be 0-0 with Norwich's naivety, I think, in the way that they play, and Manchester United's inconsistency. This will be 6-6.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because Ollie was talking up the kind of the way that Norwich play in terms of, he's kind of like Klopp-like in many ways, Farker, in terms of he really goes for every team regardless of who they're playing, and showed against City what they can do. But obviously that, in theory, should play into the hands of United with the way that they play. They only seem to be really effective against teams who come onto them, which frees them up to play on the counter with James and Rashford, and now Martial's back. And Ollie's been talking up Martial a lot over the last sort of 3 or 4 days. So I'm sure Ollie will be happy to see Norwich play in the way that Norwich have played under Farker. And that should play into their hands. And like you say, if that happens, we could see quite a lot of goals, because I think obviously if United take the lead, Norwich will really have to go for it, and that could turn it into a bit of a 3-3. You never know.
Indeed. Well, on that note, it'd be good to get a prediction from you for both of the games: Liverpool, Tottenham, Norwich, Man United.
I'm really bad at this, Richard.
Don't worry, we're just as bad.
I think Liverpool will beat them. I think they'll score 3. It could be a 3-1 or a 3-2. And I fancy United will do it, actually. I just think that run's got to come to an end. So United to win 2-1 and finally get more than 1 goal.
Fantastic. Great stuff, as always. Mark, do appreciate you joining us.
No problem. Cheers, guys.
That's Mark Flanagan there, Love Sport Northwest correspondent, going through the 2 games. Well, in fact, there's 4 games today, of course, but the 2 games involving Liverpool and Manchester United. Of course, Newcastle take on Wolves today. Arsenal take on Crystal Palace. In fact, just on that one, Arsenal Palace, I mean, a couple of interesting fixtures there. Newcastle Wolves is an interesting one for different reasons. But Arsenal Palace, Arsenal can win. If they do win, they'll go within 2 points of the top four. You kind of feel like they need to win.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they need to win. Oh, it's a game. I mean, they're at home. They need to win it. It's and Palace, it's a really strange position you find Palace in, because the type of football they play isn't easy on the eye. It's almost survival type football. Yet they find themselves 6th place, 14 points from 9 games. And I bet they don't even know how they've got there. But they're there. And, you know, going to Arsenal, you're not expected to win. You can go and relax and play. But with this Arsenal side at the moment, you have no clue what you're going to get.
No, very true. It is a fascinating list of fixtures today. No doubt we'll be keeping on all of them. Couple of games in the Championship as well. We're going to be talking to Brian Statham shortly, ex-Spurs and Brentford defender. Of course, Brentford taking on QPR tomorrow night. We've also speaking to Steve Wraith, the NUFC Matters YouTuber, because as we touched on, Newcastle are taking on Wolves. The time is 10:30.
Love sport. Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
The spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire. Oh, what a goal! Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club. Absolutely brilliant. Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
When looking for the best possible deal for his car insurance, Jim went on a spokesmansaid.com and saved hundreds.
I'm Jim. I'm a radio presenter based in Glasgow. I couldn't believe how expensive the car insurance for our Citroen C4 Picasso was going to be from my existing insurer. I went on a Spokesman Said and saved an incredible £600. Just amazing.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
This is Love Sport.
That's a Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Paul Mortimer. Of course, there's a massive game of rugby taking place at the moment. It is Wales 9, South Africa 16. They did get that conversion after the try. About 17 minutes left in this one. Wales are pushing, though, Mr. Mortimer.
Well, they're trying their hardest. They've been right under the post, trying to drive their way in, but the South Africans have just been far too strong. It just has not happened, and they're scrumming now. Literally, literally under the posts.
Yeah.
I think the Welsh have the put in, so we'll see. They're going to just try and drive their way across the line.
It feels like they've been here for an eternity now. They're just over and over and over. And but you're right. It just seems like they don't quite have the power to go. Now here we go. Here's a chance. They come through, and it is a try for Wales. After all that, they have scored a try.
Wow.
It's right in the corner. It's right in the corner, so it's going to be a tough conversion, but it is now Wales 14, South Africa 16. I'll tell you what, this is going to be a fantastic finish to this one.
They're back in it, but like you say...
do you know what, they mixed it up? It felt like they were doing the same thing over and over and over, and they finally got it out wide.
They were.
And they do go over for the try.
There seemed to be an overload out wide. Yeah, you could see it, yeah. Where the South Africans just haven't... You know, they thought. I think they actually thought that Wales were going to keep going through the centre, keep trying through the centre, and
good play.
It was a very quick ball released out wide, and
there we go.
And there we go. Game on again.
It will. We'll keep you informed on the conversion. We're going to be speaking, like I mentioned, we're going to be speaking about Newcastle shortly. I want to touch on the game, just briefly, the game tomorrow, because it is a big game in the Championship, a big game in West London, because QPR face Brentford. QPR, of course, had a fantastic start to the season. It has to be said that Mark Warburton very much getting the best out of these. If they win, there is the chance, depending on the Bristol City game today, there is a chance that QPR could go into second in the table.
Yeah. Well, if they win, they'll be in the playoff places at least, you know, irrespective of Bristol's score. So there's a fantastic incentive, because I'm sure we spoke before the start of the season, we're looking at teams that we thought might struggle. Queen's Park Rangers was going to be one of them, because all of their, let's say, big hitters, big money signings have got, and it's through.
Oh, he's made it halfpenny. He's put it through. It's 16-all.
Fantastic.
It's a brilliant kick.
Game on. That is a pressure kick, by the way.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I felt
kick.
it.
Yeah, we both did. But yeah, I mean, you know, no one would have seen Queen's Park Rangers to being where they were. You know, they're 7th looking up. You'd have thought they'd be 17th looking over their shoulder, which is what was happening a lot. So it's testimony to the great work that Mark Warburton has done, but also the fantastic recruitment and being able to bring players in.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we're going to touch on that game, certainly. We're also going to be talking a little bit about Spurs as well. Did I say we have got Brian Statham on the line to discuss that with us? Morning, Brian.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Want to talk about this game tomorrow, just talking on the fact that QPR have had such a good start to the season, and depending on results today, they have the chance to go second. However, Brentford are certainly coming into a bit of form at the moment.
Yeah, they are. It's really nice to see, actually, because I think, you know, I've been on this show many times talking about Brentford and the struggles since the new manager came in. And maybe now we're just seeing that turnaround, that patience that the board have shown in the manager, and maybe we're just seeing the fruits of that labour and patience.
Well, like you say, they did that last year, where, to be honest, you know, the results he was getting, he could have got the sack. They've trusted him
quite easily.
Exactly, and they've just left him to do the job. And slowly, you know, Neil Maupay leaving is huge. You know, because that's a goal score. But it's allowed Ollie Watkins to come and step in and score some goals. So, you know, they're in a decent position at this moment in time, with a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, still a lot to play game-wise. And if they get on this little bit of a roll, and that belief that wins give you a striker scoring goals for as long as he stays fit, they start getting closer and closer to that top 6. And then maybe they can actually give themselves a real good chance of actually staying in the top 6, because that belief is so powerful for any individual and a group of players. That being said, if results do go the other way, then one would expect that to certainly put a bit of pressure on the manager.
Out of interest, talking to some of the individuals, because it's much change from last year. Obviously, you mentioned Maupay, Romain Sawyers as well, and a couple of others that left, the likes of David Raya, Janssen, and several others that have joined. Who have been the standout players that have joined? Who's because obviously there's always going to be a bit of a transition period, I guess, when you've got that many players coming in. It does seem like they're settling down now. Who have been the standout players?
Well, I think that it's just Watkins for me has been sort of the big difference for them, because as strikers go, when Maupay's there, you know, he's almost playing second fiddle to him. He's now the main striker, and if your main striker isn't scoring goals, then you are in trouble. So for me, he's the guy that's really stood out, albeit not the most recent signing. But he's the guy that stood out because he's leading from the front. He's getting them goals, which has meant they're winning games. So for as long as he continues to do that, he becomes such an important player within the team. And you don't always want to put that amount of reliance on one player, but that's just the way it is at the moment at Brentford.
Steve, can I ask, I mean, you've said that Ollie Watkins, as long as he continues to do it, it's also, if you look at, you know, Brentford's model, they also sell. So come January, I mean, I know you're wanting them to be up in the playoff places. For me, what's always hamstrung them is the fact that they've sold their best players. So they've got to a certain point, but then almost sabotaged themselves by selling all their best players. So would that be a possibility, or do you think they'll keep everyone at least till the summer?
I think we had the discussion last year around the transfer
Yeah.
window, and they actually sold. Did they sell one? And I think maybe the vast majority of those sales came at the end of the season. But I think that all of that come January will depend on between now and January, so over the course of November and December, and depending on 10 games maybe across those months, how those results go will maybe determine what they actually do in January when it comes to selling. If they're in the mix, then they're going to be keeping hold of and then give themselves a chance to actually get into the playoffs and maintain maybe a top 6 position, if that's the case by then, come Christmas. But the model is a fantastic model, but it does totally almost every 12 months, it just throws the whole football ethos out of sync. Financially, it's amazing. It is incredible what they are able to do, finding players that are relatively unknown, not paying vast amounts of money for them, and then selling them for 10s and 12 million. Great model. But that's at the behest of the success of what's on the football pitch.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I want to talk a little bit about Tottenham, of course, one of the other former clubs. They face Liverpool today. It's been a bit indifferent. In fact, indifferent's probably not the word in the league. It's been pretty poor in the league so far this season. How do you see that one playing out? Have they got a chance of getting a result there?
Yeah, they have. You watched Liverpool at Old Trafford last week, and Manchester United, and they've been poor. They've probably been worse than Spurs in actual fact for me. So, looking at that Manchester United, they were pretty offensive from the get-go. Put them under a bit of pressure. They're decent defensively, Liverpool. So they're not silly. They're a good defensive unit, and they pinned them back and they stopped both their fullbacks joining in. Manchester United got their wide players really high, which meant that the 2 Liverpool fullbacks weren't able to get beyond and join in with the front 3. Now, if Tottenham do something similar, then that gives them, it's a bit of a blueprint. If they copy that and do something similar, then that gives them a chance as well. But I actually think they'll get something out of today's game. I think at worst, they'll get a point out of it today.
I've got to say a couple of things. I think Liverpool are good enough that lightning doesn't strike twice. I think they'll have learnt from that, that this is how teams are going to play against them. Also, it would depend on if Spurs have the personnel to be able to do that defensively, but also spring into attack. I think they've got the legs without a doubt. But also, I look at Spurs and I just think, their form isn't great, but I think this could be one of those moment performances. Every now and again in a season, you need that moment performance to remind people just of how good we can be. And I think if they can get something today, that might be the catalyst for them.
Yeah, with the result during the week and a resounding win, then they're going to be going into today's game with that bit of belief back. That could be soon sucked dry if Liverpool put on an incredible performance today. But that's going to give them belief going into the game. They've played for their manager. They're behind him. There've been loads of different variations of stories coming out, but seems that they're on side. And Aurier, if he comes in and plays at right back, then he's certainly got the ability to get up and down, and a little bit erratic at times, we know, but he's got that strength and pace, so he can certainly get them pinned back and put a bit of pressure on Robertson. So yeah, you're right. Those moment games. Is this the game that actually everybody gets up for? They always get up for their games. They're ready for games on a Saturday, but big games make a big difference to how you actually mentally go into them. And this could be one of those days where they've got a bit of belief from the midweek win. And yeah, come on, guys, we can actually get something out of this. They're top. Let's go and beat the top team in the country.
Yeah, indeed. Well, look, on that note, what do you think the score will be in both this game and QPR Brentford?
Oh, goodness, thanks for that.
Of course.
He loves
do you know what? God, do you know what? I'm going for a draw on both.
Okay.
I'm going for a draw on both. I think that London, the North, the West London derby, that's a real big game. That'll be quite aggressive. I would have thought. I would hope. So yeah, I'm going for a score draw in both.
Score draw in both. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much as always, Brian. It's appreciated.
Cheers, guys.
That's Brian Statham there, ex-Spurs and Brentford defender, giving his thoughts on the game tomorrow night. Of course, QPR taking on Brentford, Liverpool taking on Tottenham today. Just to give you the latest in the rugby, it is still 16 points apiece. We've got about 7 minutes left. It does look like Wales are slightly stronger.
Oh, they are. They seem to. I mean, it's almost like South Africa are just sitting in. It's almost like they're saying, look, they're slightly stronger than us. Let's just sit in, and they've weathered the storm fairly well. Wales really haven't been able to make inroads that they'd like to make.
You wonder whether it's just going to be a moment of brilliance or a mistake that decides this one. It really
I'm
is.
nervous because I think it's going to be one of those. I mean, it's difficult.
It was a shame. Wales had really good possession a couple of minutes ago, and they attempted a drop goal which they missed, and it's now back in midfield. It's going to be a really fascinating last few minutes. We'll, of course, keep you informed on this. We're going to be talking a little bit of Newcastle as well next with Steve Wraith.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the rent, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice. Soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Call now or search Macmillan Money Worries.
This is Lionel, another very happy person who saved themselves money at a spokesmansaid.com.
Hi, I'm Lionel from Peacehaven. I took note of what the spokesman said and I saved £484 per year on my energy, and I recommend everybody does the same.
A spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings. Compare, switch and save with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love sport.
That's What Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee and Paul Mortimer. Big moment in the rugby. It's now Wales 16, South Africa 19. Not good news for Wales. There's only 3.5 minutes left in this one. It was a fantastic kick, in fairness, from Pollard.
It was a really good pressure kick, and all they're doing now, South Africa, is game management.
Yeah, they are, and actually they're making good ground there. Yeah. Drop catch there from Wales. It's not looking good here. They need to get possession back.
They need to get the ball, and they can't get it.
No. You just feel if South Africa don't make a mistake here, it's looking very good for them. Wales will have possession back now, though. We will keep you informed on this. We're going to be talking a little bit of Newcastle as well, because, of course, they've got a big game today. They're facing Wolves at St James's Park. Delighted to say we've got Steve Wraith, NUFC Matters YouTuber, on the line to go through it with us. Morning, Steve. Oh, we haven't got him just yet. I'm sure we'll have him. In fact, we do have him now. Morning, Steve.
Hi, lad. You okay?
Yeah, we're good, thanks. Hope you're well. Big game this for Newcastle. I was talking earlier about the fact that Newcastle have had some really tough fixtures so far. So to actually have amounted the number of points that they have, it hasn't necessarily been that poor of a start. Is that a fair comment?
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, it was doom and gloom at the start of the season. Rafa Benitez leaving, Steve Bruce coming in. I think we've talked about that on the show a few times now. But yeah, look, give credit to Steve Bruce and the players. They managed to amass, a decent amount of points. I think, unfortunately for me, it still papers over the cracks because, the team is very shot shy, and I think what we see today, Newcastle United against Wolverhampton Wanderers, is two very shot shy teams who, don't score a lot of goals. And Wolves just seem to be getting their game back in order. I think their away form isn't too bad. I mean, obviously they've just had a great result against Man City as well. They seem now to be coping with the European adventure and then the league game following it a lot better than they were early part of the season. So it's a tough game. Every game in the Premiership's tough, but Newcastle haven't done so badly themselves, beating Manchester United obviously in their last home game at St James's Park, and then away to Chelsea last week. Didn't do themselves. Didn't embarrass themselves. Obviously, Frank Lampard obviously thought a lot of them. He was still going on about them yesterday, prior to his game. So, look, it's not doom and gloom yet, but it's still, there's still the jury's out, I think, on Steve Bruce and the team at the minute.
I look at Newcastle and I feel sorry for them, and I look at how difficult it is for the players, because there's always this emotional baggage that Newcastle fans, whenever you talk about Newcastle, the issues that are happening off the pitch, they have to have an impact on the pitch, and it must be really difficult for the players to just focus on playing, for Steve Bruce to just focus on being a manager because of all of the static, all the noise that's going on around them.
Yeah, it hasn't always been like that, of course. I mean, this really has only started since probably the mid-90s when Kevin Keegan obviously had the wonderful few seasons as the entertainers. Prior to that, Newcastle and Sunderland, it has to be said as well, have always known their place. We've always either been mid-table, old second division, or perennial strugglers in the old first division. Since the Premiership evolved, though, Newcastle, the Newcastle entertainers changed the mindset, I think, of the supporters who we attracted with the investment and with the exciting football. And I think that's been the transition with regards to the support. I think the hardcore support, the people who go home and away on a regular basis, and those who are of a certain vintage, people who are 40 plus, we all remember the old days. We all remember, the likes of Bobby Shinton and Alan Shoulder playing up front and being our top scorer with 7 and 8 goals respectively. So, it's one of those things. Modern day football now has changed the concept of the way we think, and we forget that there was another league before the Premier League. Other records do actually exist and stand, and I think I think for me, Newcastle fans, are realistic. Most Newcastle fans are realistic. We all realise where we are and what, we're not a top team. We're not challenging for honours. And yeah, it will affect the players when they see maybe fans protesting or fans staying away. But, at the end of the day, they're professional footballers. They get paid to do a job. They should still go out and do it. And, the one thing I will say is over the last few seasons under Rafa, and it has to be said under Steve Bruce, certainly at Chelsea, there's been a bit of doggedness there, that there's a determination. And I think what we've seen over the few years when Rafa was here was there was a very much batten down the hatches and, stick together as a team, and that'll get us results. And hopefully that's what we'll see. I think the biggest disappointment for me as a Newcastle fan is that we're just failing to score goals. We don't expect to be entertained, but if you don't score goals, you don't win games. And you're right, we've had hard fixtures at the start of the season, but every fixture is hard when you're not scoring goals. And I do worry. I still feel that we're still, going to be involved in this relegation battle as we always are. And we have to have 3 teams worse than us to stay up, I think.
Yeah, indeed. I want to ask you about the Longstaff brothers. Before that, just to let listeners know, it has finished, and it's not good news for Wales, unfortunately. It has finished Wales 16, South Africa 19. The South African players now celebrating on the pitch. The Wales players, as you can imagine, quite emotional. Not a good day for them, unfortunately. I want to ask you about the Longstaff brothers. Of course, they've been quite big news over the last few weeks. Of course, Matty getting the winner against Manchester United, and for the next couple of weeks, it felt like they were in the papers every single day. How's the relationship between them and the Newcastle fans? It must be so nice for the Newcastle faithful to have a couple of local lads that are doing as well as they are.
It's great to see the Longstaff brothers come through. I think everybody who's involved with the academy knows that there's, that there has been, the 2 brothers coming through and who've been very effective in the under 23s and earlier than that. But yeah, it's great to see one of your own and 2 of your own now coming into the first team. I think from our perspective, though, I've covered Newcastle for many years now, and I look at it and think, how frustrating is that that's what Rafa wanted to do when he was at the club. He wanted to invest in the academy. He wanted to bring players through because he knows the benefit of that. It saves you owner money eventually. And, to see now, Lee Charnley coming out and taking the credit and saying, yeah, we've got a great academy, etc. It just gives them an opportunity to get a little bit of one-upmanship. And, for me, getting back to the brothers, it's great to see. They're very young. It's early days. They come from a sporting family. Their father, of course, was a great servant to Newcastle's ice hockey team. So they're grounded as well, which is very important. They're both Newcastle fans, and I think that if a big club comes calling, as we're led to believe Man United did for Sean last season, they're not just going to jump at the first opportunity, and that's good for us because they'll learn their trade, learn their craft at Newcastle, and hopefully be able to keep us up this season. But it's very positive. It's good. You can't turn that into a negative. It's very positive. You know that they're going to give 100%, as Paul Dummett does as well, who's unfortunately found himself out of the first team at the moment. He's obviously on the bench, but he's been pushed out by an impressive Kieran Clark. But he's a Geordie, Paul Dummett. He's going to give 100%, and it does make a difference because they'll run through a brick wall for the team.
Yeah, indeed. And before you go, let's get a prediction on this game today, Newcastle Wolves.
Well, believe it or not, I'm usually Mr. Doom and Gloom when I come on this show, but I am going for a Newcastle 1-0 win today. I do have a feeling we're going to win. I do feel we're going to win today. I think Joe Linton 1-0 is what I'm going to put on at the bookies.
Fantastic, Steve. Appreciate you joining us. Steve Wraith there, NUFC Matters YouTuber, saying it's going to be a 1-0 win to Newcastle. Out of interest, how do you see that one playing out, Mr. Mortimer?
Like he said, there's two shot-shy teams who don't seem to be able to score enough goals. So, I mean, I think it's going to be the odd goal that wins it. I don't think it's going to be 6-6. Let's put it that way. Two teams who are suffering at the moment. But yeah, probably 1-0, 1-1, maybe.
Okay, we're going to obviously we're going to the news shortly, but I want to talk about this game. The Wales players are clapping the South African players off. Of course, South Africa will face England in the World Cup final. Such a tight game, this one. Just a penalty right at the end, which decided it, unfortunately, for Wales. Yeah, you feel sorry for the Welsh because they contributed to a very tight tussle, which could have gone either way. And again, it's a penalty, so it's a mistake at the end. I mean, South Africa's pressure forced a penalty. That's basically what happened. So whether it's a mistake, it may not be. It's their pressure that's forced a penalty, and that's how they've won. And so it will be England. Do you think England would have had a preference? Do you think England would have wanted to have played South Africa as opposed to Wales? Well, Wales have beaten them. Wales know how to win, and I think where England are at the moment, the way they played, it didn't matter. They'd beat either side, and I think they'd be better than South Africa, better than both of these sides. Yeah, indeed. Of course, that takes place on Saturday at 7 a.m. Of course, there'll be loads of build-up over the next week. No doubt we'll have a few classic Eddie Jones comments. Looking forward to them. There'll be some mind games. They'll start as of now, no doubt. He's got a few. He'll have a few saved already that he'll be bringing out. What was it last week? It was the Spy, wasn't it? That was the one. Yeah. The Spy. The best one I liked was when he said to the New Zealand press, you're all fans with mics. He said, put your hands up. Who thinks we can win? See? No one. So there you go. Yeah. We're just going into it. He didn't give any time, though. That was a bit. It was like, hands up who thinks we win. No one. See? No one. He goes, well, give us a chance. Brilliant. Look, it has finished, though. Like I say, South Africa are through to the final. They'll face England. It finished 19 points to 16. Not a particularly good day for Wales, unfortunately. Do stay tuned. We've got a big hour coming up. 3 minutes to 11.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
AsSpokesmanSaid.com is a leading price comparison website that allows you to compare every energy tariff on the market in seconds. We have more deals than any other comparison website offering energy prices, and our impartial independent switching service is free of charge. Nearly 50% of UK households have switched bills, and there are hundreds to be saved. Visit AsSpokesmanSaid.com, as recommended in The Guardian, The Times and The Sun. AsSpokesmanSaid.com.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids. So make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness. But childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
Love Sport Breakfast. Love Sport Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer here with you for another hour or so. A big hour coming up. We're going to be speaking to John Solarco, ex-Crystal Palace midfielder. Harry Simeo, Chronicles of a Gooner. We'll also be speaking to Gareth Dixon, Ranger Things. Of course, QPR taking on Brentford tomorrow. Morts, this isn't fair, is it? You see, you try and do a professional job and you've got an intruder in the room.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
what
do
one's
we do about
professional,
this?
one's unprofessional. You name, mind you, somewhere, some young man's waking up without his waistcoat. So,
Do you know what? All will be revealed very, very shortly. As always, you can get in touch 0208 7020 558 on the WhatsApp. We're on YouTube and we're also on the socials at Love Sport Radio. The time is 11 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 11. Donald Trump's widely expected to say later that the leader of Islamic State is dead. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is believed to have been killed in a US military raid in Syria. Major General Chip Chapman, ex-head of counter-terrorism at the MOD, thinks the terror group will continue its attacks.
IS is in bad order, but it's not actually completely dead. So as a territorial governing entity, it is no longer there. But people wrongly often say, will we see a 2.0 version of IS? We're still in 1.0. It's just not as prevalent as it used to be.
A senior Turkish officials apparently called it a good day for the good guys. The former Chancellor's urged the government to stop throwing tantrums over its Brexit agenda. Philip Hammond says he'll vote against Boris Johnson's plans for an early election in December, claiming now is not the time for a ballot. Meanwhile, a Lib Dem SNP plan for a pre-Christmas election that's not on Boris Johnson's terms has been called a stunt by the Tories and Labour. It backs a December poll if the EU grants a 3-month Brexit extension to stop a no-deal exit. Lib Dem MP Chuka Umunna claims it would help break the Brexit deadlock.
You've got three really important things there. Takes no deal off the table, fixes legally the date of an election, and ensures that we don't see the Prime Minister trying to ram his withdrawal agreement through the House of Commons. And it then refers this issue back to the people so we can end the gridlock in Westminster.
It's understood Vietnamese police have taken DNA samples from the potential relatives of people who died in a lorry container found in Essex. A man's been charged with manslaughter. Relatives of a British backpacker missing in Cambodia say her disappearance is out of character. The family of Amelia Bambridge, who's 21, have flown to the country to help look for her. And Wales have suffered a painful 19-16 defeat by South Africa in their Rugby Union World Cup semi-final. The winner will now face England in next weekend's climax. That's the latest. I'm Tanya Snow.
This is Love Sport.
From the case files of Miss Maureen 118212, the case of the replacement rodent.
A woman called asking for the number of a pet shop. She needed a new hamster before her son returned from school. I didn't ask what happened to the original hamster. Best not to know some things.
Maureen 118212. For directory inquiries, call Maureen on 118212. Calls cost $2.50 per call plus 75p a minute with a minimum 1-minute charge plus your phone company's access charge.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport.
Good morning, Love Sport Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Mr. Paul Mortimer. We're here for another hour or so. Then, of course, the I want to say brilliant Andy Hodgson. I don't know. Is he brilliant? I'm not sure. After him trying to put me off in the last little section. Anyway, he will be coming up.
Getting personal
after us.
here.
It is,
getting
I
personal.
know. He will be in a while to present or to give us a taste of what's to come. Let's touch on the headlines this morning. England will meet South Africa in next weekend's Rugby World Cup final after the Springboks beat Wales 19-16 in today's second semi-final. Pollard scored the winning penalty 4 minutes from time to set up a repeat of the 2007 final. Eddie Jones players dominated the back pages this morning after their convincing win over New Zealand yesterday. Insisted his side could still play better next weekend, while All Blacks head coach Steve Hansen had no qualms admitting the better side won. In football, the Mirror reports former Manchester United chief executive Peter Kenyon is looking to broker a deal for US investment group to buy Newcastle, while the Sun says it looks as if the Arsenal board have backed Unai Emery's decision to have Mesut Ozil on the very fringes of his squad. And Tiger Woods has a 3-shot lead over the field going into the closing stages of the PGA Tour Golf in Japan. Play was suspended due to darkness with 7 holes to play as Woods looks to secure a record equaling 82nd PGA Tour title. And in boxing, Derek Chisora secured a stoppage win over David Price in their all-British heavyweight boxing match in London. In the football, Liverpool will regain their 6-point lead at the top of the Premier League with a win over Tottenham this afternoon. Spurs will be looking for revenge after last season's Champions League final, but Jurgen Klopp doesn't think it will make much of a difference.
That's, of course, another additional motivation to put some things right. That's all clear, but the end is a football game between two really good teams, and the situation around will not make a massive difference.
This is the Love Sport Weekend Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Paul Mortimer here with you for another hour. And as mentioned, Andy Hodgson coming up next with Fraser Bernstein. Great show that is, so do stay tuned for that. We're going to be speaking to John Solarco this hour, Harry Symeou and Gareth Dixon. Obviously talking a lot of Arsenal, Palace, and touching on the game tomorrow night. Of course, QPR taking on Brentford. Big West London derby. Arsenal, Palace, Paul Mortimer. This one for me is an interesting one, a game that I just feel that Arsenal have to win. And I know it's quite a big statement at this point in the season, but actually they could soon lose touch with that top 4 if they aren't to win these type of games.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I think the top 4 are consistent, and that's why they're going to slowly start moving away. Arsenal have to decide whether they want to be part of that group or not, because they could find themselves marooned. The strange thing about this is a game Arsenal should win, but it's a game also Crystal Palace have all the tools to be able to beat Arsenal as well.
They do indeed. Well, actually, someone who's going to know a lot more than we do. John Solarco, ex-Crystal Palace midfielder and a regular on the show, thankfully. Morning, John.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hope you're well. Interesting game, this one. Just saying that look, Arsenal will, of course, be heavy favourites with it being at the Emirates, but Palace, obviously not an easy team to beat, but a positive start to the season. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, fantastic start, and especially I think the win at United was a massive fillip, and again going away to West Ham, sticking in there where got absolutely battered in the first half and then hung in there, got a fantastic result. But the key's really been winning at home, so the Wolves game should have been a win. But obviously, they did return over there. We obviously beat Norwich, and it was the other team we beat. It was Norwich. Was it Burnley we beat at home as well? So they were good results. I mean, Sheffield United was awful. So I don't know what it's difficult what we're going to get out of the team this afternoon, but it's a game we should get something out of.
I agree. I mean, I think Arsenal on their day are a very good side, but those days don't happen often, in my opinion, because they're not consistent. But with your Zahas, your Townsends, my only problem with Palace is going to be: are they going to be able to score more than one goal? That's the problem for me at the moment.
Look at that team, and if you put Lacazette, Aubameyang, and Pepe in the Palace side, we'd probably be top 6, wouldn't we? So, I thought Arsenal were terrible against Victoria, and then Pepe came and scored those 2 free kicks, absolutely brilliant. So you just don't know. I mean, Arsenal are vulnerable defensively, so Palace are always going to fancy their chance wins.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, with Palace, and I suppose it's more a broader question, more general question. The goals and ambitions this season, have they changed at all since the start of the season? Because all the drama in the summer about Zaha, will he stay, will he go? Of course, Wan-Bissaka going to Manchester United. You then wondered whether that could really impact Crystal Palace. However, mention it, they've had a good start. Look, a win today, by the way, and they're right in the mix again. They'll be back up to 5th and be in a fantastic position. What are the goals and aspirations for them this season?
Oh, well, I mean, staying in the Premier League is the goal, isn't it? But the start's been phenomenal. 15 points. It's just an incredible return. Because at Christmas, you want sort of want 24, 25 points, don't you? And then you can go into that second half of the season relaxed and pick up points. You do not want to be looking to get sort of 25, 26 points in the second half of the season to stay up. So, absolutely delighted with where we are. And as you say, keeping Wilfred was a major coup. And, obviously Benteke signed again, Connor Wickham signed again, Tompkins. So, it's a solid squad. And Roy must be frustrated, really, because if he could get, I think Ayu's got 3, Van Arnold's got 2, and Townsend's got 1. So, you just need someone who maybe can get you, Benteke can get form, Ayu, Connor Wickham, and get sort of 15, 16 goals, and the other striker gets 10, 12. Then, you're looking top half of the league. So, goal scoring has been the major problem. But obviously, with someone like Wilfred on the pitch, you've always got a chance. And Milivojevic doesn't miss from the pen spot or free kick. So, it's tough for Palace fans. It's nutritional. And staying in the Premier League is all that really matters.
John, will they have any resources to be able to splash out on a player, maybe 1 or 2 if they need to in January? Because, again, for me, what keeps you up, what keeps you in there is a goal scorer. I think Palace defend well enough. I don't think they've got the goal scorer. I think, it's a great position they're in. Is it a false one? I don't know. But will they have the resources if they need to splash out on someone in the January window?
I certainly think there must be. There's resources enough to buy a Heller, Wesley. Go and find. We need to find a Callum Wilson, a Josh King. This, a Woods, a Barnes. I'm looking at. There seems to be plenty of strikers around that are not going to cost the earth, but will get you some goals. And I think that's what we've really got to be looking at. And I'm certainly thinking sort of 15, 20 million can get you, a decent striker. The lad Pookie that's, come for nothing at Norwich. And you think, they are out there. And I'm sure Dougie and the boys, Dougie Friedman, are going to be looking and trying to scout and pull that one gem in that, maybe score, 10, 12 goals after Christmas. But you say, really, I think everything's going to be, all the eggs are going to be put in the basket of hoping that Connor Wickham and Benteke and Ayu can see us through.
Yeah, indeed. All right, to get a prediction from you on this game?
Oh, do you know what? I'd like to think, Palace can get an upset and get a draw there, but I don't know, Pepe, Aubameyang loves Sundays as well, so after, they'll be fresh coming back into it. I can't see beyond an Arsenal win today, but I'm hoping a draw.
Great stuff. And just very quickly, actually, because of course you did have your time at Brentford. Big game for Brentford tomorrow night, taking on QPR. Do you still keep a close eye on Brentford and their progress?
I do try and watch them every now and then. Tremendous game. QPR played Reading the other night. What a tremendous game. I think sometimes we forget how good the Championship is. I saw, is it Brentford played the other night? They've been absolutely magnificent. And, without an academy and just keep signing players and keep, lost so many good players like Jota to Wolves. It's been an incredible journey with the new stadium coming up. It's really, the future looks bright for Brentford. Yeah, so, I'm loving watching the Championship at the moment.
Great stuff. John, really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Great stuff. John Solaka there, ex-Palace midfielder, giving us his thoughts on Arsenal against Palace. We're going to be speaking to Harry Symeou, Chronicles of a Gooner, shortly to get his take on it. It is a tough one to call, isn't it? This is one, you look at these kind of fixtures, and ordinarily, years gone by, this should, and ordinarily has been an Arsenal win. I think the 20-odd appearances, I think that Arsenal won 14 or something like that. Although, of course, Palace did win at the Emirates last season. So it should be an Arsenal win, but it goes back to what you said. You just don't know what Arsenal team are going to turn up.
It's the day. We'll know 10 minutes in. Yeah. Well, no, it's literally like that because Arsenal are so inconsistent. Crystal Palace, I don't know if this is somewhat of a false position because at the start of the season, the last couple of seasons, they've staved off relegation. They have. And it's the same squad. They've not really had any additions. In fact, they've lost Wan-Bissaka, a huge part of their game. So, for them to be where they are, some of the players are probably starting to produce better performances. So, I mean, they'll love going to Arsenal because they're not expected to win, so they can play with some freedom and knowing that Arsenal will come at them. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion for Arsenal this game.
No, I do happen to agree. It's something else that I find interesting, and I'm always a bit of a geek for when you look at goal difference. And all right, but so Arsenal at the moment, 9 games in, the goal difference of +1, and Manchester United, a good example, goal difference +1 again, 9 games in, where look. Of course, it's an obvious statement, but those with the best goal difference ordinarily finish top of the league. And the top 3, +14, +23, +17, Chelsea +7, after that, and this includes Tottenham, includes Arsenal, includes Man United, the best goal difference in the rest of the league is +1.
Yeah.
Take out those top 4, +1.
That's right.
And that's Arsenal at the moment with and that's, again, it's just unheard of. Years gone by, even when they have maybe a couple of bad results in there, they'd always have a really positive goal difference. But it just shows you that middle section of the league, there's actually 10 teams that the goal difference is either +1 or -2. They're all in between that.
Well, Palace are 6th. And theirs is -2.
Yeah.
6th in the table.
They've got a
That's
minus goal
ridiculous.
difference.
Yeah, that ordinarily we look at that shouldn't happen.
No.
Minus is for the bottom half of the table.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at teams in 6th. They normally look with their heads up looking towards Europe.
Yeah.
And they've got a minus goal percent. That's ridiculous. But it just shows the middle aspect of the division is competitive.
Yeah, it really is. Well, look, we're going to be speaking to Harry Symeou, Chronicles of a Gooner, to get the Arsenal perspective next.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're right.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in.
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
Love Sport.
Last Weekend Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, and Paul Mortimer. Of course, the big story this morning, England will meet South Africa next weekend's Rugby World Cup final after the Springboks beat Wales 19-16 in today's second semi-final. We can hear from Warren Gatland now.
They gave 100%, you know. It was a tough, physical South African team that we played against, and they were good up front and won the collisions in terms of, you know, their carrying and stuff. I thought we were pretty good at times, but you know, big men, but our guys didn't take a backward step, and I can only be proud of them for that. And like I said, we stayed in that arm wrestle for a long, long time, and but you know, I said well done to South Africa.
So, of course, Warren Gatland is leaving now after this match. Yeah. This is his last match. His team did him proud. I mean, there were comments in the paper the week before when they edged past France, but it wasn't a particularly good display. Well. They played a lot better today, has to be said. I mean, the Wales faithful, they'll be proud of their team after today. There'll be a frustration because they were so close, and the fact that it was, you know, kicked right at the end of the game. There'll be a frustration, but at the same time, like Warren Gatland's just touched on there, that he can be proud of his players. Yeah,
of course he can. I mean, it was a difficult game, and when you get to the semi-finals, you're playing against one of the four best teams in the world, and South Africa are definitely one of those. Wales, I think, would have thought that they'd have won because of their record against South Africa, but this was a different South Africa. It was tough. They were strong. They weathered the Welsh storm, and again forced the penalty that enabled them to win in the end.
Indeed. We're going to be talking a bit of football. We've got Harry Symeou, Chronicles of a Gooner, on the line to talk about Arsenal, who are taking on Palace at 4:30 today. Morning, Harry.
Morning, guys.
Morning. I see that Mesut Ozil is in the news once again, according to a couple of the papers that Unai Emery's been given permission to offload him. I mean, look, this seems to have run on and on for so long now. Out of interest, what's your take on Mesut Ozil, and what would you like to see happen?
I'd like to see him come back into the team, if I'm honest. And the reason being that we just don't have any better alternatives at this moment in time. I mean, people talk about his attitude and things like that, and I totally accept that since he joined Arsenal, he's not always performed to the best of his ability. But it's about comparing him to what we already have at the club. And, you know, Joe Willock came in at Sheffield United, and he was terrible, hooked off at half-time. You know, Maitland-Niles and Willock were hooked off again in the week. So it's just, for me, you know, I mean, he's better than some of the alternatives that we've got. And I just feel like Unai Emery's kind of cutting his nose off to spite his face. He says that it's a club decision to go down that route. You know, if it is a club decision, then it just tells me that not very much has changed at Arsenal, and it is about saving money rather than making sure that the team is well equipped and to be able to go out on the field and get the required results.
I look at it this way. I think when a manager hides behind the club, that's a problem for me, because that's not showing leadership. If he wants Ozil in his squad, then he decides that. You can't have a suited guy who isn't a coach deciding that for you. Also, I look at it and I think, you know, with half an hour to go, your team is struggling, you need creativity. You look back on your bench and you say, right, what have I got? Are you going to tell me Ozil isn't good enough to be sitting on the bench? Yeah, that is ridiculous. It's poor management. It's weak leadership. And then sometimes when a player is ostracised from the squad that way, often it's because they're a bad apple. Them sitting in there is going to cause real problems. I don't see that in Mesut Ozil. I don't see him being a bad influence on the squad. So he should at very least be on the bench.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's the argument that, you know, I've been having with other Arsenal fans throughout the season. I've got no issue with, you know, maybe if you go to Old Trafford like we did and you're looking to be a little bit more conservative, I've got no issues with leaving him out of the starting 11. But to dismiss him completely from the squad makes no sense. When you look at the other players that we've got, and as you said, you know, Arsenal have struggled for creativity in recent weeks. And it's, you know, people are starting to ask questions of Unai Emery now, and you just feel like he's just adding extra pressure to himself by taking this stance with Ozil. Maybe the club do want to move him on. Maybe it was a mistake giving him the contract that they did. But at the end of the day, we've got him now. We're still paying his wages. So we might as well make use of him. And like you said, nobody's going to convince me that he's any worse than some of the other players that we've seen occupying that number 10 role or, you know, a more advanced midfield role.
Another player who's received a bit of criticism, it's fair to say, at the start of the season, Pepe, had a very good game during the week. 2 free kicks late on, which meant a 3-2 victory, of course, in the Europa League. What have you made of him so far? Are we about to see him really kick on now, do you think?
Well, there's no doubt about it. He had a really slow start. And, you know, when you come in for £72 million, there's obviously going to be pressure on you to perform straight away. I don't necessarily think that Arsenal have been performing to a good enough level as a team, which obviously hasn't helped him. I keep talking about that lack of creativity. That, of course, affects the forward players. He was quite clearly short of confidence, and I think Thursday night would have done him the world of good. He came on, he won the game for us, turned the game around. And you hope now that he'll push on and kick on. But, you know, we need to be patient with Pepe, and I understand people's frustrations. I was someone that was getting frustrated with his performances, but it just goes to show, doesn't it? You know, when we're talking about Emery and we're talking about him leaving players out on merit, you know, Pepe probably should have been dropped a few weeks ago, in my opinion. He was crying out for an opportunity to do what he done on Thursday, and that was come on without necessarily so much pressure and impact the game, and that's what he did. And you know, it's good to see him get on the score sheet, and I hope that he'll push on, because, you know, I think when you look at Arsenal's team, the defence is obviously an issue. The midfield balance has been a problem as well. But we do have Lacazette, Aubameyang and Pepe. And if Emery can find a way of getting those three firing, then Arsenal have as good a chance as anybody of making that top 4.
See, I look at Pepe and I feel sorry for him, because he's suffering in the same way and for the same reasons that Mesut Ozil is suffering, because the way the team plays is not conducive to players like him being successful, because what you're looking at now is what he can't do, which is when they haven't got the ball. You know, and if you look at Ozil, that's what a lot of people are talking about is, you know, like you said, we go to Man United, we have to be a bit more conservative. Now, Arsenal, for me, I look at your Perez's and you look at your Ljungbergs, you look at Vieira's and Henry's, they took a year. They took a year to get going. And because of the physicality of the division. And if you look at Pepe, that's what I see. You see flashes of brilliance, but he's not up to speed with the physicality of it. It's somewhat of a culture shock to him. So But unfortunately, the team isn't good enough to help him, to mask those deficiencies. He has to hit the ground running, and that's a testament to, I think, where Arsenal are at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. But in fairness to Nicola Pepe, you got to take into consideration that he didn't have much of a pre-season this year, if any at all. You know, he went to the African Cup of Nations, and then he came sort of straight back. He made the transfer, and he was straight into the fray. And you know, that's obviously going to be a problem. It's going to take him a bit of time to catch up with everyone else in terms of fitness. But you're absolutely right. I think, you know, the way the team is playing is not helpful. I think there's a real heavy reliance on someone like Aubameyang at the moment, who, you know, I dread to think where Arsenal would be without him at the moment, because he doesn't get much in terms of supply, but he is taking his chances, and he's essentially getting us over the line most weeks. So, you know, you're right. I think if Ozil's in the side, I think that helps Pepe. I think Pepe makes a lot of runs that probably don't necessarily get picked out by that midfield that we're seeing at the moment. And as good as Guendouzi is for his age, and you know, he's not gonna play those defence splitting passes that Ozil does, which of course Pepe and Aubameyang will be looking for. I'm sure that Pepe and Aubameyang are probably going out on that pitch every week and looking behind them and wondering how on earth Mesut Ozil is not getting a game.
Indeed. Of course, Palace won this fixture 3-2 last season. How do you see it playing out today? Do you think, obviously I know Palace, I think have failed to score in 4 of their 9 games so far, so despite the fact they're doing as well as they are in the league, I don't know if it's necessarily accurate. I know we're still quite early in the season. Do you expect Arsenal to win this game?
It's funny because I should, but I don't. You know, like you said, Palace won the fixture last season, and that game essentially unravelled our season because after that we went on a dreadful run and missed out on the top 4 finish. Unai Emery didn't take the game seriously enough last season. He made a whole host of changes because we had a Europa League game on the Thursday. That's not the case this time, but you know, Crystal Palace will come there feeling confident. They'll know that if they sit deep, you know, stay narrow and compact, they can probably make it really, really difficult for Arsenal. And they've got the likes of Wilfried Zaha, Townsend, etc., who can break out on us. And you know, Arsenal are lacking in confidence at the moment. And you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. Some of the fans are starting to turn on Unai Emery, and I get the impression that if things don't go well from the beginning, you'll see a bit of a toxic atmosphere, kind of similar to that atmosphere we saw at the end of Wenger's reign. So, you know, it's building up. The pressure cooker's on at the moment, and Unai Emery is in it, and he needs to get out of it. But you know, I'm not confident today, which is sad because Arsenal at home to Crystal Palace, I should be. But I've got this nagging feeling that we're going to see a score draw.
I was just about to ask you for a prediction. So you're going to score draw, yeah?
Score draw, yeah.
Score draw. Good stuff. Harry, appreciate you joining us.
Cheers.
That's Harry Simeou there, Chronicles of a Gooner, giving us his thoughts. Interesting that he's gone for score draw, but maybe that kind of sums up the general feeling amongst Arsenal fans at the moment, that you're playing Crystal Palace at home. Look, the bookies will have Arsenal as favourites, of course, but I think that's, I guess, where Arsenal fans are when they look at their Arsenal team at the moment, where it is so hit and miss, so hot and cold, where there is obviously talent there, there's ability there, but it just feels like there's something not quite clicking.
Well, I mean, when an Arsenal fan says that he fancies a score draw against a team that haven't scored in 4 of their games, you start to worry about, you know, where Arsenal are. And, you know, I heard Ian Wright talking earlier on in the week, and people are beginning to really think long and hard about Unai Emery now, about whether he's the man for the job, and they're beginning to question him. And so, you know, like you said, a toxic environment if it doesn't go well. We're what? This is the 10th game. If by 10 games into this season, fans are starting to feel that way, it doesn't augur well for Arsenal going forward, and the Emirates could be a difficult place for the home team to play.
Yeah, you just feel like this is a crucial game today. Of course, a crucial game tomorrow. QPR are taking on Brentford. We're going to be speaking to Gareth Dixon shortly, range of things, to get his thoughts on that. If you have just joined us, of course, the big story today is that England will be facing South Africa in the World Cup final. South Africa beat Wales this morning, 19 points to 16. The time's 27 minutes past 11.
This is Love Sport. Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
Aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it,
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the mortgage, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Call now or search Macmillan Money Worries.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Find out what you need to do to prepare at gov.uk/Brexit.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
Love sport. Last but Weekend Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, and Paul Mortimer for another half an hour or so. Then, of course, Andy Hodgson and the team will be coming on at 12. Great show. Do stay tuned for that. I want to talk a little bit of EFL. Of course, we touched a lot on the Premier League. We've touched on the fact that England will face South Africa in the World Cup final next week. South Africa did get past Wales. Got a bit of a funny story for you that I just wanted to touch on. I don't know if you've come across this. A substitute giving away a penalty. You heard about this one?
I heard about it. I've not read about it, but I've got to work out how that happens.
So, basically, footballers
beware.
A
substitute not on the pitch?
Not on the pitch.
Right,
has given away a penalty. So here's the story. Footballers beware. There's no escaping VAR. Just ask Holstein Kiel midfielder Michael Erbivine, I forgot that right, who is a contender for the unluckiest substitute in sport. Erbivine was warming up behind the goal during a German second division game against Bochum on Friday when he kicked a wayward shot back into play. However, VAR spotted that Erbivine had touched the ball before it had crossed the line, prompting referee to give a penalty and show him a yellow card.
Explain that to me again.
So he's warming up behind the goal. He's not playing.
Yeah.
Someone's hit a wayward shot, and so he's gone to kick it back to the goalkeeper, but it hadn't quite crossed the line. It must have been maybe, I guess, like in Germany, maybe they warm up behind the goal.
Yeah.
So he's obviously going out of play. He's gone to kick it back to the goalkeeper for a goal kick, but it hadn't officially gone out of play.
Okay.
So it's a penalty.
Is that the rule?
I didn't know that was the rule. So
that's a penalty.
Could you imagine how furious you'd be if one of your substitutes, who's not even playing, has given away a penalty?
But I mean, I got to look at the rules. So because he's touched the ball and passed it back, it's a penalty.
Yeah.
There's no foul or anything.
To make this even funnier and to make it worse for Erbivine, it's his only touch so far in a Holstein Kiel shirt because he only joined them in the summer. He's yet to play a game. He's yet to play a game. And he's given away a penalty.
God, dear, that's going to be a quiz question for years to come, isn't it?
Quiz question. So I thought I'd just bring that to the mix.
Still baffled.
I do want to talk a bit of EFL. Of course, there's a couple of games today. An interesting game, the Welsh derby between Swansea and Cardiff, of course, today, which will be fascinating. Bristol City have the opportunity to go second if they beat Wigan today. Touching on some of the results from yesterday, Charlton, brilliant result away at West Brom.
Yeah.
They were on the the receiving end of a last-minute winner against Bristol City during the week, and very harshly, it has to be said, because they were brilliant on the night. I went to that game. However, they did get a last-minute equaliser themselves against West Bromwich Albion. It's another great result.
I mean, it's a wonderful result. You're not expecting them to go to the team at the top and play the way they have played. I mean, you know, they've had a run of games against the teams in and around the top, which has been magnificent. You're sitting there. I mean, I remember a couple of weeks ago when we looked at their next 10 games, me and my son, who go to the games, me and my boy were like, oh, my God, we're in a bit of trouble here. We could be down the bottom.
Yeah.
But no, you know, they've been in every game. The thing about it is, even when they've lost, they've been in every single game. They've had opportunities to nick a draw or win virtually all the games. They haven't been battered or outplayed.
Well, that was it. I went to the game. I think they were home against Birmingham. They lost 1-0, I want to say. And that was a bit of actually, maybe the tide's going to turn. Macaulay Bonne was really struggling at that point. Seemed like he was just a little bit off the pace. And, of course, it's a massive leap from the National League to the Championship. All of a sudden, though, he seems to have come good in the absence of Lyle Taylor. And now the fixtures start to ease up a little bit. You mentioned they've had this real tough run, but they have picked up some valuable points. I think they beat Leeds, didn't they?
Derby, people like that.
So this was it. They're picking up points. And you actually look at the ones they've got coming up now. They've got Preston at home, Millwall away, Cardiff at home, Luton away, Sheffield Wednesday at home, Middlesbrough away. Difficult, but you actually look at it and it's now starting to open up again, where if they carry on with the same level of performance, the only thing for them and for me is that they are picking up injuries now.
That's the problem. Yeah.
And when you've got a reasonably thin squad and they've already got one of the lowest budgets in the league.
Well, you call it what you want. I don't call it a budget.
No,
but you know.
It's not a budget for the Championship. It's a League One budget that they've got. So, I mean, look, can we... Again, does Lee Bowyer get enough credit? We give him a lot of credit here on this show, but I just feel that you look at the managers up and down the country, he's got to be, top 5 at the moment in terms of what he's doing?
If you consider the teams up the top, Fulham without Mitrovic, for example, you just don't score the goals. Fulham don't. I mean, he scored a hat-trick the other day. That's what we've got at Charlton. It's without Lyle Taylor, who, was one of the top goal scorers in the league when he got injured. So his injury is obviously a lot worse than what people thought. He's missed, 3 or 4 games?
Yeah.
And they've prospered. They really have. He's done a magnificent job so far, Lee Bowyer. The scary thing for me is I think he's only got a year contract, him and his staff, which is a nonsense.
Absolute nonsense. You're right. And even him signing that year in the summer was a bit of a surprise. But I think he probably, and from his point of view, the fact that he's out of contract in the summer, any outfield player, any player he's out of contract in the summer. There'll be no compensation on Lee Bowyer in the summer. Now, I'm sure at this point, it would not surprise me if there's conversations going on behind the scenes where, not necessarily putting him in place already, but maybe clubs knowing that a manager is under fire. Some of the certainly top-end Championship, if not low-end Prem, I think you'd be looking down. You think a young English manager who's doing a fantastic job, who they can get on a free at the end of the season. He's not on a big contract at Charlton. And the team that supports him as well, the Johnny Jacksons, Andy Marshall, of course, as well. You just wonder, it would not surprise me if this conversation's already going on behind the scene. And again, if you're Roland Duchâtelet, I guess there's the issue as to whether Charlton are going to be sold or not, which has been rumbling for years now, it feels. It's then, surely you try and secure him. Surely now you're having a conversation about putting him on a 3-year contract and securing the asset.
You would think that, but for the last couple of years, it's been a year and it's been lastminute.com. And I think what you have to look at also is, like you say, there's no compensation. If you look at all the turmoil that's been going on around the club as well, and he's managed to calm the players down, focus the players on performing. I think him, Lyle Taylor, Macaulay Bonne, if he keeps scoring goals, it's going to be a fire sale at some point. It's going to be difficult to keep these players if the club aren't forward thinking and saying we need to tie them down, if only to be able to charge big money when they do go.
Exactly, 100% I agree. I want to touch on Millwall as well, because of course big win for them yesterday against Stoke. Real pleasing win that for Gary Rowett, of course, against Stoke. Interestingly, the 2 fixtures today, so Swansea taking on Cardiff. Swansea, who have been up the top of the league, it feels like most of the season, now 10th.
Yeah.
But it just shows you that gap now between 1st and 11th, in fact. It's only 5 points. It's so tight. Only 3 points between 2nd and 11th.
It's a nonsense.
We mentioned it today that Bristol City can go 2nd with a win today, and they are at home to Wigan. So it's certainly a game they could win. Wigan down in 19th. Again, it'd be huge for Bristol City if they can find their way up to 2nd. Similarly, QPR, I mean, depending on the Bristol City result today, they could go 2nd if they're to win. I mean, West Brom, they're top, and they've drawn the last 2 games at home to Barnsley, who are what? No, they're bottom. Barnsley, that's right. And, of course, home to Charlton, who you would, on paper, fancy West Brom to beat Charlton. But this, again, goes back to why, for me, I enjoy the Championship more than the Premier League.
It's
I genuinely
far more competitive,
do. It really is.
And no one is going to run away with it because, as you've said, we've said it so many times, and here's the proof. Bottom can beat top, or at least get points from top, and that doesn't happen in the Premier League.
No.
Not as often as it does in the Championship.
So touching on Millwall, big win for them against Gary Rowett's former club Stoke. Stoke, who after those 2 victories in a row have now lost the last 2 again, and actually there's a bit of a gap forming. They're now 4 points off Reading, who are in 21st, just outside of the relegation zone. Stoke and Barnsley in real trouble here. But for Millwall, Interesting for Mill now, I guess it's that they're currently in 15th, but they're only 5 points off the playoffs. They are 6 points away from relegation.
It's ridiculous.
This is the league,
Two
right?
wins either way. He puts them top or in the bottom. It's brilliant for a neutral.
League. But I guess for Gary Rowett's point of view, this is the exact start he wanted. You know, it's always going to be tough going in after Neil Harris, I think, because although there are a few grumbles towards the end, you look at Neil Harris's reign, it was very, very good.
Punched above their weight.
Massively punched above their weight. Promotion, nearly made the playoffs in his second season. Last season was a bit of a struggle, but you know, he's still a Millwall legend. So whoever's coming in, it's going to be a tough job. So this is the kind of start he would have wanted.
But he's an experienced manager.
Yeah.
And he's experienced hardship as well. He's experienced leaving a club when really it was unfair for him to do so. So he understands adversity. He understands success. He knows the division. This is a safe pair of hands.
Yeah.
At a club where he can stabilise them and push them forward. And he's experienced as well, you know. So it's a very, very good appointment. I reckon he'll get more money to spend than Neil Harris ever has done. I do, because that's just the way things go. But his remit, I think, will be to getting them as close to the top 10, top 7 as possible.
And touching on their opponent, Stoke. So Stoke, I mentioned 8 points from 14 games. Nathan Jones wasn't happy with the performance. He said we're extremely poor. We were out-battled, out-worked, out-thought. We didn't do the basics well. I mean, Stoke, look, we touched on it before. Nathan Jones, he had a stay of execution before the last international break. Of course, had the win just before. I think it was against Swansea, wasn't it? Just before. And then they won the game after. And you thought, actually, maybe they've turned a corner. But they have now lost the last 2. They are now 4 points off safety. This is Stoke, one of the highest budgets in the league. I mean, look, we're talking about a Lee Bowyer. This is a great example. And by the way, I'm saying this with Charlton sat in 8th and Stoke sat in 23rd. But if you're talking about a manager coming in, Lee Bowyer would be the kind of manager that Stoke look at, I think, because I think that when you've got a budget, you've got a Premier League budget, and you want someone to come in that can get the basics right, because that's exactly what Nathan Jones has said. He's spot on. It just seems that they've spent a lot of money on some very good players on paper, but when you watch them play, there isn't that cohesive unit. They don't seem like they're working hard enough. It's going back to what we said about Chris Wilder earlier. When you've got a team that do the basics well and you can get the base in place, then you can build off that. Stoke don't seem to have done that yet.
The strange thing is, Stoke at the moment is a Gary Rowett club.
Yeah.
It sounds because I think what they need is Lee Bowyer would be all wrong for this.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do. Just simply because, reverse a year, Lee Bowyer is Nathan Jones. Nathan Jones going into Stoke is the exact same as Lee Bowyer, had success and everything. But a League One manager going into a Premier League club, that's what's happened.
Yeah.
And that mentality, the experience of a Premier League club, they had Premier League players and you could just see them going, I'm not having this.
Yeah.
And you can see it in them.
Do you know what is interesting? And this is where there's such a difference. There's so many managers have experienced this, where you go from a team like Luton, where you're dealing with a lot of, say, ordinary lads. I want to make it sound right. They're
lesser players. Let's be honest, lesser players.
It's smaller egos as well. That's a big part of this, is that you're going in, you're dealing with lads at Luton that are on 1,500, £2,000 a week. Suddenly you're going to Stoke and you're dealing with lads that are on 20, 30, even 50 grand a week. And there is an ego that's attached to that. I'll always remember people talk about wealth and the part it plays in football. And it sounds ridiculous, but a manager comes in. Now, if they are, and this is why you often see ex-players that have played at the highest level going at the bigger clubs, because there isn't an issue in terms of stature. As Steven Gerrard goes in at Rangers, there's no issue in terms of stature, because instantly there is respect for him because of who he is and what he's done. The second that a Nathan Jones goes in, now look, Nathan Jones on paper has done more than Steven Gerrard. He's more experienced as a manager. It kind of, in some way, if it was a normal job, an everyday job, and you're looking at CVs, Nathan Jones will get the job above Steven Gerrard. Yet, if he were to go into a Rangers, similar thing as to what's happened at Stoke, there are egos of those players, and the players are looking and saying, who is this guy? I don't remember him playing.
That's right.
You know, what's he done? Right. And suddenly he's on the back foot to begin. Then it's whether you can win him over. Now, Mark Warburton did it really well at Brentford. Now, admittedly, Brentford at the time, we were League One, we weren't huge, but still, Mark Warburton had it because it was this guy that came from the city.
Yeah,
no one knew who he was.
Who are you?
Who are you? Like, what do you know about football? He'd only got into football at the age of 45. You're like, how does this make any sense? But what ends up happening, we get a few wins, you suddenly build that respect for him, he gets the respect from the fans, and now he's established himself. For Nathan Jones, it hasn't happened at Stoke, and for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like he's got the players on side.
3 wins in 35. I mean, at any other club, in any other situation, I think he'd have lost his job. And I'm not an advocate for it.
No.
But you have to respect Stoke.
This is it. They're so loyal. They always have been Stoke. It's something. It's one of their You wonder whether that next international break, 'cause that's not the last chance, but really, if you're going to make a change, they have to do it then. I wouldn't want them to drag it into December, January, because suddenly it's too late. If you haven't got a transfer window to play with, then you're just reliant on Mr. Motivator coming in.
And that's not going to happen. I mean, I think it's weird. This next international break is going to make or break. Between now and then, I think there's more than one manager who's sitting uneasy, hoping the results go their way, because come that break, I think this might be the second season. This.
I think you're right. Well, one team that did make the change, of course, was Huddersfield. Danny Cowley coming in, and they're now starting to see the benefit of that. I feel they're out of the relegation zone finally. Big win that against Barnsley. It was a bit of a basement battle, but the fact they won, and actually they're a team. Good example. They have made the change, and now we're starting to see Huddersfield go in the right direction. And I think they'll pull away from that group now. But it does fascinate me the fact that we've got Stoke and Middlesbrough in the bottom three. Two teams who really the bookies would have had them both in the top six at this stage of the season.
Well, if you consider where Middlesbrough have been over the last 4 or 5 years, whether you like their football or not, they've been in and around the playoffs with Tony Pulis, and Woodgate comes in, heralds a new change, and it just hasn't. But you know, it happens sometimes. What links those two, Middlesbrough and Stoke, it just hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Now, are the clubs going to be honest enough or have enough courage to cut ties, or are they going to continue? Because if they continue, I can see one or both of them struggling for the rest of the season.
Could you imagine one of them going down to League One? It's unthinkable.
Don't discount it.
Similar things have happened before. A quick word on Preston as well. A derby against Blackburn yesterday. They did come out on top. They find themselves second in the league. A late winner it was in that one. And of course, they were 2-0 down in this game, it has to be said. So to come back from 2-0 down to beat Blackburn 3-2, find themselves second in the league. The kind of team that always feel like they're there or thereabouts, certainly over the last, without ever getting themselves to the Premier League.
They're under the radar. That's why they go under. I mean, we're near the end now, and we've not spoken about Preston.
No.
We've not spoken about they're second in the table.
Yeah.
We've spoken about West Brom. We haven't spoken about Preston. It's when you're a manager, that's what you want.
Yeah.
You just want to go under the radar, because the minute people recognise you, it's almost like you become a target that people want to knock down. And they've just quietly gone about their business, and everyone's woken up. They're second in the table.
Yeah.
And Alex Neil does a great job.
Yeah, indeed. Like I say, a couple of fascinating games today. Swansea taking on Cardiff, Bristol City versus Wigan. We're going to have our next presenter in next, Andy Hodgson.
Oh, gold.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital. Paying the rent, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Call now or search Macmillan Money Worries.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the
best team won on
31st
the
of
day, I'm
October.
afraid. They really
Find
slowed
out
the
what
game
you
down.
need to
The
do to
referee allowed
prepare
them to slow
at
the game down. And I think
gov.uk/Brexit.
from that respect, they stopped us
As a
getting any
parent,
rhythm.
you always want to
did as well as
protect
we
your
expected.
kids,
We're not as
so
good as
make
South
sure
Africa,
their
England, or
vaccinations
England,
are
and
up to date.
it showed tonight.
Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
This is Love Sport.
Last Weekend Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Paul Mortimer, and unfortunately it's that time in the show where we have to welcome...
I'm here!
He's straight from the Crucible. Andy Hodgson is in the room wearing a waist jacket.
What? Hello.
Is it Gareth Southgate inspired?
Yeah, do you know Gareth Southgate is my dad?
What?
No, he's not really.
No, it would have been quite a revelation.
Yeah, it would have been.
Live
Where
on
do you
air.
stand on the Bang Bang? Where are you? Because today I couldn't get my usual sandwich, so I've gone for the Bang Bang chicken. It's in a soft wrap, so you could, even with false teeth, you'd be all right, Paul. So that's good, isn't it?
Wow.
I would be all right with what? I'm sorry, I tuned out. Say that again.
I have never gone down those roads, have I?
What road? I didn't
not
hear
what
it.
I've
Go on.
read.
No.
I have this way of tuning out when he talks.
Yeah, is it just
Anyway,
in one ear
carry
out
on.
the other? Yeah.
I've got a big one.
Sorry, tuned out. Say it again.
Go.
Sorry.
He never lets me finish my sentence.
I
It
know.
just
Sorry. No,
it can sound weird.
It's 10 to 12. You asked the time, didn't you? Sorry, silly me.
I
Sorry.
am going to cuddle him so much in a minute. He's going to love it.
Well, something I need to ask you. So you've just
What?
touched on the fact that you've put a tweet out this morning, an abusive tweet
No.
towards me and
Really?
Mr. Moore. I can't find it.
No.
So is it hidden?
Maybe it's been deleted by Twitter already.
Ah,
okay.
fantastic.
So, well, when you find it, just see if you would agree with the sentiment that I put in a tweet earlier this morning about you two.
Okay.
It's where the rest of his suit is.
It was comparing the both of you.
I'll say again, it's where the rest of his suit is.
He said it twice now. I don't know.
But looking at the waistcoat, the suit obviously doesn't fit.
I think I paid for a piece.
Because that's his son's waistcoat.
So, I have got a big one.
His grandson's waistcoat.
And I would like to reveal
His
all.
grandson's little brother's waistcoat.
Who was the best player for England yesterday? Just throw it out there. Who-
It's OJ.
Yeah, well, we've got an interview with
Underhill.
him today.
You do this every week. You haven't, have you?
Yes.
No, you haven't.
No,
You do this every week.
Let him talk. Go on, say again. You've got an interview with who?
It's OJ.
You got with our star man yesterday. You got an interview, an
Okay.
exclusive interview.
It's Alistair Campbell
Yeah.
interviewing Itoje. That will be on today's show after 1 o'clock.
Right.
Okay.
All
right.
There's no joke there. That's who we
Okay.
got on to. But it's his views. Interesting. Everyone's talking about the rugby and how he played. It's his views on racism in rugby. It's
Right.
his views on rugby league versus rugby union, the class
And
differences.
nothing to do with yesterday's game.
You never know until you listen. But I'll also reveal.
okay.
I'll also reveal that he's going to talk about being an Arsenal fan, but how he wouldn't let his kids go to watch Arsenal following his experiences at the game. That's today after 1 o'clock. Do you want more?
Well, I do. but
No.
Right. Paul,
Yeah.
have you heard the Boy That Cried Wolf? Have you heard that
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
yeah. You know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
after a while, you just stop believing
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
But now you've got to listen to the show, haven't
No,
you?
I know.
That's
It's
what
very
you gotta do,
clever.
haven't
I
you?
see what you've done there.
See what
and
I've done?
Of course, I will be listening on my way home.
Of course
so
you will. It's true.
I'll be listening because I'm going to record it.
But there's also
No, because at 2 o'clock in the morning when I suffer from insomnia big time.
Perfect.
And it will knock me out.
Hearing his
No
voice.
problem.
I
Fraser,
love
not
going
you,
to
not
bed.
Fraser.
There is
Always in bed with
there
Paul.
is the expression of like people that.
Bit weird.
Where is this going?
I don't
I've
know.
got no clue.
He started it.
He won't stop
You
talking.
won't. I want to talk about your big one in a minute as well. that you- so look, there is the expression about. Cause actually, this touched on this about over-promising and
touching on
over-promise and under-deliver.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like each week you promise these incredible guests,
And?
they're never on.
What are you talking about, man? Listen to the show today.
Right, I'll
I've got
listen again.
ex-Wales.
This is your last chance.
Wait for it. Ex-Wales International, ex-Burnley, ex-Palace and Forest. Gareth Taylor is on the show as well. He was at the Chelsea game yesterday. He's going to talk about that, and Palace coming up as well. Is all right? Is that one all right?
Yeah, that's a great one. No,
If it happens.
if it's true.
Roger Utley, OBE, ex-England. Yeah, captain.
Yeah, that's
He's on the
proper.
show today.
All right.
Yeah, we'll
It's
see.
massive,
And
man.
don't give it
Look
one
at
of
the
them
size of
where
it.
we've got. Okay, don't give it one of them where you then say they don't answer their phone. That's the
Yeah.
classic one. Like, we've got David Beckham coming up. And, Bex
Never
hasn't
happened.
answered his phone.
no.
Never
Yeah.
happened to me. Is that a problem you're suffering from on the breakfast show? Is that why you're saying that? There's a bit of inferiority coming.
No,
in
it's
here.
just that when we listen to your program, well, when I pay someone to listen to your program, that seems to happen a lot.
Oh. Right then, cats. We've got a Twitter poll as well. It's the most obvious Twitter poll in the world ever.
That's where I've seen the waistcoat. My grandson's got one of them. Yes,
nice.
that's right.
How old is your
Carry on,
grandson?
sir. 9. Carry on.
That's
And that one would be too small for him, by the way, the one you've got on. Anyway, never mind. Carry
You
on.
want to see my underpants? The Twitter
No,
poll
thank
today
you.
is who will win the Rugby World Cup. Click on it on Twitter. We will release it shortly. England or South Africa. Simple as that.
England done, completed. Next.
Well, you've got to do it on Twitter, otherwise it doesn't matter, does it? Otherwise the figures look rubbish.
Right, okay. But is anybody going to vote South Africa after their performance yesterday?
Yes, people who like South Africa or were born there.
Okay,
yes.
we're a London-based radio. So I've got a feeling
exactly,
England...
that's why I'm saying it, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, there's
Okay.
lots of South Africans here. There's more. Have you heard about the Rugby X event at the O2 on Tuesday? No. Big new rugby event.
Oh,
5 versus 5.
Yes, I've seen.
No line-outs, no mucking about.
No half-time or anything, is there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang. Big players at the O2. We're talking to one of the presenters of that today
Something
as well.
that you could present, because they just need constant chatter. Of course, you've got to make sense, so maybe you'd struggle, but there you go.
Stop mid-flow, can I? Dead air is a crime. Me and Alan both know that. Richard, you keep pointing your pen up and down. What are you doing?
This is just a habit that I've got, and I'm also worried that at any moment I feel like this could escalate. So I'm just making sure we keep you two as far apart as we can.
No, we're cool, man. We're cool. I love him.
Yeah,
from a distance.
Hang on, I've got more. You boys touched on it this morning, which is lovely. QPR Brentford tomorrow. So we've got ex-Brentford player Gareth Graham on the show as well. He played for Palace as well, but most notably for AFC Wimbledon. Big game in West London.
It is indeed.
So what do you think's the biggest out of all of that then? Which, if you could only listen for 10 minutes, what bit of the show are you listening to? Who's your favourite guest out of that
What
lot?
time are your adverts?
When's
Fraser on?
for you today?
When's Fraser on?
It's like being at home with the wife.
Fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, it's very similar.
That poor wife of yours.
You look just like her as
feel
well.
sorry for her.
That's the weirdest thing.
She is good looking. I tell you what, she's good looking.
I'm
real
really
fit.
And you know what she's doing? She's punching below her weight.
Is she?
I'm telling you.
Oh.
Anyway, no. So what I'm most looking forward to Brentford, of course, with my Brentford links.
Of course you are.
QBR me as a QBR fan.
There you go.
As a QBR, you're not bothered about Marrow, or you're not bothered about that interview?
Well, I tuned out that bit.
Look,
tell me that bit again.
Look, if it's
no,
true,
don't tell me that bit
do you know
again.
what? If that happens, then yes, I am.
It does happen just after 1 o'clock.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm
he
your man.
hasn't said which day, by the way.
My word is stronger than oak. Cuddle me. I'm ripped to the core.
Right, on that note, Andy, we'll let you go and do your last-minute bits and pieces. Andy Hodgson is coming up in about
there are no last-minute bits and pieces.
5 minutes
Seat
time
of pants.
with Fraser Bernstein. No Ross Satire this week. She is away in China.
She
but
drew the
Fraser,
short straw, or the long straw.
Yeah, she's been begging for a day off, and they've finally granted her one. So Andy Hodgson is coming up in about 5 minutes' time. And breathe.
Yes.
And breathe. Last couple of minutes of our show, Mr. Mortimer. It's been thoroughly enjoyable, as it always is.
Good fun, yeah.
Good fun. I think we have to finish on the rugby. Of course, a big weekend for England and South Africa. Unfortunate for Wales today. They were much better today as well, but it was a late penalty that meant they went down 19 points to 16. It's now obviously the build-up. Of course, the game is on Saturday, 7 o'clock on Saturday. The build-up over the next week or so. No doubt we'll have a few mind games here and there. In a way, and this is just my opinion, given that Wales obviously defeated England not so long ago, I'm pleased at South Africa from an England perspective.
I wouldn't have minded.
Either way.
Because the way England played yesterday, that would have frightened both sides. Because I truly believe that level England were at yesterday, I don't think Wales or South Africa could have lived with England. So if they can get anywhere near that level, I can't see South Africa living with England. I really can't.
No, well, this is. Do you think you'll make any changes for next week? I mean, obviously, if there's any enforced, then that. But I just see that yesterday, and you kind of feel the dynamic will shift because England were underdogs. Yes, let's not forget, and you could see them smirking in the V formation beforehand. It was a nothing to lose, and actually they were so on it from minute one. Well, literally from minute 2, they were on it, and there was the one mistake the whole game. That was it. So you just wonder whether now the dynamic shifts that they will be favourites going into this game.
Yeah, it's a different thing, isn't it? I mean, he's prepared to make changes. I mean, he dropped George Ford for the Australia game where everyone thought, wow. Even I thought, well, Ford must be gutted. But if he thinks that the team that's gonna beat South Africa needs to be different, he'll change it, and the players have bought into that. They understand it, so I don't really see that being an issue.
No, great stuff. Well, look, as always, Mr. Mortimer, absolute pleasure.
No quiz again. See how you've worked that out.
I'm delighted about that. I've had to pay a lot of money to make sure we've had no quiz. So I will thank our producers on that note. Porrig, fantastic as always. Will, brilliant. Who knows? We might have a quiz next week because we are back, aren't we?
because I'm not here next week. That's why you're definitely having a quiz.
Oh, you're not here? In that case, we are definitely having a quiz next week. Fantastic. 3 minutes to 12.
This is love sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Kenna Men.
Cage.
Pants and